He's still figuring it out.
Oh, I was wondering who used Anecdote of a Houndsman to put that.
It's me. When you gave me a login, anytime I comment, it goes under you.
Oh God, dang it! That way I can put stuff and say it wasn't me, that was him.
Yeah, that's why I do it.
We're trying to get Brandon on, but he's loud. That's why we're late. That is why we're late.
No, don't blame Brandon for your crap.
Well, he's not here. Oh, there he is.
How's that? Yeah, don't. What are you blaming me for?
That's better.
A lot better. What happened?
I switched to the iPad from my. I don't know what's going on with my laptop.
Oh, probably too many porn sites and got the virus.
Yeah.
Speaking of viruses,
I blew the mic.
Tonight we're gonna make a lot of fun of viruses tonight.
Oh fuck.
No, not just you, Brandon. Don't worry. We got someone that went to Africa and then brought the dirty.
Oh boy.
But he found out that everything is not free, no matter what.
No, it is not.
Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The gift that keeps on giving.
It is.
Oh yeah. All right, we're here because of Dustin. Why don't you just break into it?
All right.
We didn't do nothing exciting. Did anybody else do anything exciting? More exciting than Africa? No, I didn't.
I'll try and get through this. If I yawn or rub my eyes, it's because I'm tired. Like Chris said, it was the gift that kept on giving. So I did get home on Wednesday, and like Friday, I was like, oh man, this jet lag is just not leaving. Then I started getting like achy muscles. I had a swollen thigh, and I started getting a real bad fever. So finally by Monday, my wife's like, you gotta go to the doctor. So I went to just like urgent care, not the ER. And as soon as they found out I'd been to Africa and I had bug bites on me, it was like, nope, you can't be here anymore. They all masked up. They kicked me out and sent me to the ER. So I was in the ER. They put fluids in me, took a bunch of blood, and pretty much just determined that I have African tick bite fever. So they put me on antibiotics for like 15 days, and that's about it. So I'm starting to feel better today. Today's the first day I really got out of the house, but it's 6 o'clock and I'm ready for bed.
Man, that red light district's rough.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you what, I'll bet you I didn't stay awake in Africa later than 8:30 at night. I was in bed asleep by 8:30 or 9 every night.
Well, let's start with the flight first. It wasn't a 3-hour flight.
No. So Cody and I got it all figured out finalized. It was about noon on Thursday when we figured out everything was going to work. And my flight out of Phoenix left at 10:30 Friday morning. So less than a day. I flew from Phoenix to Atlanta, which was almost 4 hours. Then I had pretty good layover there for, I think, 4 hours. And then it was a 16-hour flight from Atlanta to Joburg. And then I spent the night in Joburg at a place called, knew what it was till I wanted it. It's kind of like a trophy hunting lodge that's there that hunters come and stay before they go where they're hunting. Afton Lodge is where I stayed. So I spent the night there. They took care of me, took me back to Joburg Airport, and I flew from Joburg to Port Elizabeth, which is about as far south in South Africa as you could go. And it was on the eastern side instead of the western side. So I wasn't by like Cape Town. I was clear over on the other point of Africa. Like where the plane landed, it was ocean all around but one edge. So landed there. I did meet up with Scott in in Joburg, the photographer. So Scott and I met up in Joburg, and then flew to Port Elizabeth together. We waited there for a couple of hours for Gavin to get there. Then once Gavin got there, we rented a car and drove about an hour and a half up the coast to a smaller town called Kenton on the Sea. And that's kind of where we stayed in. It was a nice place. It was kind of not so much like a Airbnb, but like a really fancy Airbnb that they used for a hunting lodge some of the time, and sometimes I think people could just come rent it. It was in a big, huge compound that like 10 landowners owned that had their own personal houses in there, but it had animals in there. Like where we were staying, there was giraffes, there was zebras, there was wildebeest, there was Inyala, impala. So every night after we got done hunting, Scott and I would just grab a drink or whatever and go for a walk, and we'd just go see all these animals while we were out walking. And there was some water buck in there too, and some warhog. So that's where we stayed. So the first 5 days we hunted in that area with a guy named Jeff Ford, who owns Lynx Safaris, and he was kind of more of a like an actual outfitter for outfit over there. And what they do is they hunt a bunch of farms and like ranches on the coastal area. Mainly they're still catching these caracal and jackal. Freaking Jared. There we go.
Yeah.
They're still catching these caracal and jackal, helping the farmers with predation, but they're doing it also as hunting as well. Like they're primarily killing them. They're bringing hunters in to kill them. So, but what was different about what Scott and Gavin and I did is we actually hiked with the dog handlers, whereas everyone else, they just call them and say, hey, we have a cat going. Once they get it treed, they bring the hunter in. The hunter walks into the tree and shoots it. That's how most of it works over there. So when these black handlers that run the dogs for Jeff, so Jeff has 3 handlers, and each handler has his own pack of dogs that is anywhere from 6 to 8 dogs. So pretty much those guys' job 5 days a week is they go get dropped off in different spots and they hike until it gets too hot. So they start around 5 in the morning and they hike till 10 or 11 free casting these dogs just in different spots every day around all the ranches that they have permission to be on. That's their job.
Are they hiking stuff that looks a lot like the country that if we wanted to go hike a canyon for like a bobcat or something like that? Is it pretty similar in that, or what
looks like this, Brandon?
Let
me show that video real quick of what.
Yeah, not in the coastal stuff. It was more rolling hills with green shit everywhere.
I'll show you
just
this video.
Grass all over, like tall grass.
Not tall grass, shorter grass, because the cattle keep it down. But a lot of trees, a lot of cover. But just, I mean, honestly, beautiful country.
Yeah.
Here, let me show a video.
So that was the first day. So a lot of it looked like that. Some of it where we hunted closer to the actual coast. Like there was one day we got to the top of the hill and the ocean was less than 300 yards away. Like we're just trailing cats. You know, you could hear the waves while we're trailing. So we hunted there for 2 days and didn't really get anything going. Heard a couple barks, but not much. One thing I did learn in that coastal area where they hunt, they listen for, it's an antelope over there called a bush buck. And when a bush buck sees a caracal or a jackal, it will bark. So if they hear that bush buck barking, they will change whatever direction they're walking and go towards that. So it's pretty much, it's tattletaling on the predators is what it is. So, and that's how they get a lot of their success. Because one thing over there that I did pick up is these guys that are running these caracal and jackal are not cold trailing. they're very much hunting the animal more so than the track. Because I mean, honestly, where we were hunting, I'd say 85% of the time it was ground. You could not see a track if you wanted to. So they're solely relying just on free casting the dogs and then listening for those bushbuck to bark. The first 3 packs that we hunted with were more English foxhound type dogs, except for one pack had a little more blue tick in it, and it was a pack that had came from somewhere else that he hired on. So definitely, I think they're a lot, and I have nothing to gauge it off of, but just from what I could see, the dogs over there and the way they hunt, they want a warmer nosed dog versus a cold nosed dog. They don't want to spend the time to cold trail as much as they just want to hike and get as close to the animal as they can, get it jumped and get it caught.
Do you think that's because of all the different types of predators that are over there? That it's just too much of a risk and too much different game, like just such a mix?
Not where they're at, because down in that part of South Africa, there are no lions, like, or leopards, like very, very few. So it's not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So really the only predators down there are the caracal and the jackal. I mean, there could be something that I don't know of, but when we asked them, they don't worry about lions, they don't worry about leopards or hyenas. They're very, very few down that far. They're a little farther north. So I really think it's just the style of how they hunt and the dogs that they've brought in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think are, at least those ones, you know, weren't bred for their cold trailing abilities as it was just their jumped race abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second place I went was even more so that they had imported a lot of running walkers from back east here. But they did have some dogs and some lions that some had came from Idaho, and then a couple dogs I got to hunt with had ties back to, I know the one named Benny, I know the other, but they came from Terrell Shelley and what's the other one?
Richard Holcomb.
Yes. So I did get to hunt with 2 dogs that went back to those dogs that got imported at the second place. But so we hunted 2 days, didn't get anything going. The third day we were hunting with a guy, Marone was his name. He'd been hunting dogs himself for over 30 years, just a black guy that had been running hounds. We started a jackal with him, and as the dogs were trailing the jackal and just, you know, making work of it, we got a call from the other handler, Tim, and he was telling us, yeah, I think these dogs have found somewhat of a caracal scent. So we burned over that way and got with him and ended up catching that caracal, and that's the one that I shot. But it was quick race. I mean, the longest caracal race that we had was like 20 minutes. So it's really more, and that's I think they're starting it off the ground. To answer Evan's question, they are starting it off the track, but they're starting the track very close to the animal, and then they're just, you know, then they're drifting the track until they see it with the caracals. So yeah, that one was a quicker race. We shot that one, finished that day out, and then the next day is when Scott was able to kill his, and we were with Tim, the same guy that caught mine. We were hiking with him first, and Marone was in the same canyon but farther up, and he radioed to us saying he could hear a bush buck barking. So we left what we were doing and hiked to him as quick as we could. And right as we kind of got close to him, our dog started to hit it and pick it up a little more and more, and then it was on. So like I say, they're not cold trailing. I still think they're trailing the track, but they're just not trailing old tracks. Like I think when we're hiking, we're definitely walking over 8 to 10 hour old tracks quite a bit to find the freshest cat track that's there. And I think for them that's beneficial, because they're not the caracal aren't so few that they can't just go hike and find another one the next day, if that makes sense. There's quite a few there. It's just whether or not you find the freshest track.
And those caracals are eating those.
They eat goats and sheep, and they farm a lot of that over there. They don't mess with the cattle as much, but a lot of goats. They raise a lot of meat goats over there, and a lot of sheep, and especially the merino sheep, which is where your merino wool and stuff comes from. It's really fine wool. So yeah, we ended up being able to see all of Scott's race. Not see it, but we could hear it. The trees are thick. So got to where, and what happened with his is the dogs were trailing, and they made a lose. And where they made the lose, the cat actually doubled back and pretty well ran into us and treed. So we were at the tree right before the dogs. And they really worried about these cats jumping once we were there, which is why I didn't get a lot of video of it in the tree or anything, because as soon as we saw it, they want you to shoot it. They don't want to lose it. And so Scott shot it, and he kind of hit it a little back. So that cat bailed and went down, ran about 400 yards down. And that's when all the dogs, I mean, it sounded like a freaking bear going down the canyon. There was 12 dogs just barreling down the canyon on this thing. And they hit the bottom and treed. And I have video of that, but it's video that can't come on here. But so we get in, and we're able to see it. There's one dog in the tree that we had to move to be able to shoot it because the young dog was in the tree. And then Scott shot that one. We finished that off.
And this is Scott. Did you say which Scott this was yet?
The photographer.
Yes.
That Cody knows. So that's who I was with the whole time. Was his
SA Photography, right?
Yeah, his name's Scott Allen. He's from Liverpool, England. And I tell you what, I said, if there is one thing I said on this trip more than anything was the word "what," because I could not understand him, and I'm half deaf anyway, so it made it even worse. And I even had to say it to Gavin. Like, Gavin was with us the whole time, except for like there was 2 days Gavin didn't go out with us. And that was the day Scott killed his. And then a day later that he was just had some stuff to get going. So we didn't hunt with Gavin's dogs. Gavin doesn't hunt caracal and jackal with his dogs. His dogs are leopard only. So his dogs were still up in Limpopo, which is where he spends half his time. So Gavin actually lives in Australia, but he comes over for the hunting season for 6 months and lives there and hunts leopard, but his dogs stay in Africa year round. So we didn't hunt with his dogs. I know there was a few people that asked what kind of dogs Gavin ran. I think earlier I got messages on Facebook, but so we hunted. So Scott killed his on the 4th day, and then actually that afternoon we got the opportunity to hunt behind some beagles that chase blue diker. And I don't know if you know what a blue diker is, but it's a little antelope about this big, and it just darts through the trees. So Jeff called his buddy that has beagles that runs blue dikers, and so we just went out in the afternoon with no intention of shooting one. We were just there to watch it, and we sat in the trees and watched these beagles push this blue diker past us. And it was hard to see the first time. He went past us twice, in a half an hour. So we got to go watch these beagles work this blue diker back and forth. It was pretty cool. And then the last day we went and free casted and didn't find anything. We actually found some caracal tracks in the sand, but it was definitely older and didn't get anything going that day. The next day we left there and drove about 2 hours inland to Richard Morgan's place. And Richard Morgan is the founder of Mankanzana Hounds. And so they are not primarily an outfitter. They are primarily predation control for big farms and ranches in a huge conservancy. So Richard manages and runs 8 different packs of dogs, and in each pack is 12 hounds and 3 terriers. He also has 3 litters on the ground at the moment, so I figured he had close to 150 dogs at the time we were there.
That's a food bill. Hey, on those, they chased on those blue dikers. They're tiny.
Yes. Yeah. They're
They're
smaller
like
than the
20,
beagle.
30 pounds, right? Or they're
Yeah.
smaller than.
Yeah, they're like the
Smaller
size
than
of a
that.
beagle or smaller.
What do they
those
feed all those dogs over there?
Oh.
So they feed them kibble. I didn't ask what Jeff fed his. I think it's just kibble and maybe some meat. That's the thing is over there with all the outfitters and that, there's plenty of meat that if people are killing 4 or 5 animals, they either give it back to the locals or they can feed it to dogs or whatever. At the second place, I asked a lot more questions because it was more of a predation operation and I was really interested about it. So when those dogs get, their job is they get hunted 5 days a week. So they hunt Monday through Friday every week. Those dogs are going anywhere from 6 to 12 miles a day, which is what we hiked. I hiked 6 to 12 miles a day every day for 8 days straight, following these handlers with these dogs.
How much weight you lose?
I didn't. I did lose a little. And so this at the second place, yeah, we asked him about it. And so these dogs all have their own. So each handler has his own pack. Richard kind of manages it and bounces around with it, but he's also a rancher as well, a livestock rancher. So it's not his primary job. But pretty much these ranchers subscribe to the service. And depending on their size of their ranch, it depicts how much time they get these handlers for. So a typical Monday morning, 8 ranchers will drive and pick up the houndsman that's designated for their ranch. They drive him to their ranch and they have to provide him with a kennel and a place to stay for those 5 days. And from there, the dog handler just hikes out every morning. He doesn't have a truck or a 4-wheeler or anything. He hikes from where he stays every morning and goes out in different areas catching caracal and jackal. And every once in a while, they will bring a hunter in to kill a caracal if somebody wants one, but not very often. Really what it is they're just killing everything they catch because of predation. And they don't carry a gun. It's the dogs that do it. So if they catch a jackal in a hole, the terriers go in. If they catch a caracal in a tree, shake it, the dogs do the work.
It's like a hound co-op.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean it's a legitimate business that all their sole job is to. Yes, Evan, I did measure them. I have them all. I can look them up on my phone. So yeah, they're essentially their job is to catch as many caracal and jackal as they can on that ranch or those conservancies, and just take care of them because they predate on goats and sheep. Like we did see 2 dead sheep that a caracal had killed while we were out hiking. We did have a couple accidental fox races with some bat-eared foxes, and they said the foxes aren't a problem. They kill mostly snakes and insects, but the terriers made short work of those. Evan, I will message Scott and ask him what kind of terriers they were. He found out, but I didn't. And the weather over there was 40 degrees in the morning, 80 degrees in the afternoon. So it was beautiful weather.
And high humidity though. Being
It
on the
was,
ocean.
especially by the coast. It was really high humidity, which is why I think those dogs were really just like not so much trailing the track as they were getting so close to the animal. They're just trailing the animal, drifting it.
Did you get any info on how they like as far as because so they have handlers and then they have the guy who owns all the hounds. Do they is that like a higher retention rate as far as that job goes? Like, do these guys start with the hounds like when they're puppies and stay with the pack, or are they constantly cycling through handlers, or they keep a pretty good group?
That handler keeps his dogs until they reach a certain age. Well, the first place they kind of keep their dogs till they get too old to do it or can't do it from there. The second place, they don't keep a dog past 5 years old. So every year, Richard does an online hound sale and sells all their older dogs to people in Africa. And a lot of them go to leopard hunters because where he's at, these 5-year-old dogs start to slow down and can't stay up with the jackal races. because a jackal race is a jumped race for a long time.
Yeah, it's like coyote dogs kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they said that those dogs start to slow down and fall out of the races, so there's no point in keeping them past 5. So every year they have a hound sale. They sell off all their 5-year-olds, and he breeds around 10 females a year.
Wow.
So, and that's including the terriers. So while those dogs are out hunting, they feed them kibble, and on the weekends they eat blood meat, which is the blood trauma stuff from where the other animals get shot. They feed them that on the weekends, and it really helps them bounce back. Yeah, so while we were there at the second place, we only got to go on 3 hunts there. We didn't catch anything there. It was definitely a lot rougher country, a lot drier, and a lot like steeper, more mountainous country. Like I think the one day we climbed probably 2,000 feet of elevation in one hike and dropped right back down and kept going. But definitely, yeah, it was a lot more felt like home out there versus the first place. The first place was just rolling hills, green everywhere. I mean, all the trees want to eat you. Every tree you touch pokes you or bites you or something. But as far as I know, there really isn't any anti-tree hugger much over there because everybody prospers from the hunters. Everyone prospers, whether it's meat, money into the economy.
They'd be outnumbered over there.
Yeah, I'm sure they're probably
States that wrecks their hunting.
Yeah, I mean, it could be in the big cities, but I didn't see that because I didn't spend any time there. It was definitely a very different atmosphere over there as far as the poverty and stuff like that. And I didn't get to see like the real bad parts like Benny's been to, but you could still see it for sure. And even in like the main parts of town, all the houses have fences and electric wire and gates. There's no open neighborhoods. Like
Is
it's
that
all
mainly for the animals, wildlife, or is that for
it's
thieves?
for theft. It's for theft.
And those electric fences aren't just they're electric fences.
Yeah. Yep. And whether they work or not, I don't know. It was definitely different to see that side of the world. And Gavin explained a lot of it to me, which I won't go into detail about the whole government and the way the country's going and all of that. So it's definitely it was humbling and very different at the same point to see how some of these guys live. Like these handlers, like the first place, their wages for a month would be like 500 US, and they hunt 5 days a week. And
that's a cake job over there, right? If you become a handler, you're taken care of.
Yeah, I think you have a job for 5 days a week. You have a job, and they get a little extra when they go skin and do a couple other things. But that's their job every day is to go run those dogs. Whether or not they have a client or not, those dogs are getting hunted 5 days a week. The second place, definitely the dogs get hunted a little harder. It's a lot more rougher terrain. A lot more elevation differences for sure. And they're running a lot more jackal. The first place didn't run as much jackal as the second place did. Trying to think what else. I mean, it was interesting. We stayed in some nice places. We were, Cody had it set up that we were very taken care of. There was a lady that cooked food for us every night. Every time I came back the next day, my laundry was done and laid on my bed, and like it was
she
very
single. Does she want to become an American citizen? I'm asking for a friend, guys.
Yeah.
I'm asking for a friend.
But yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting to watch how these handlers, these black handlers, handled their dogs very different than anyone here. They don't do a lot of yelling, and they constantly, as they walk, like every 30 seconds to a minute, they're whistling, and not like whistling come back. They're just making these little whistles that these dogs know pretty much essentially saying, I'm right here and I'm moving this way, just keeping the dogs with them. They didn't, every pack that I ran with, nobody ran identification collars. No normal collars with a name tag or anything on them. If they had a collar on it, it was a GPS. And the first place I hunted, only 2 out of the 6 dogs would have GPS collars. The rest had nothing. And I mean, I don't think they worry about, the farmers aren't going to shoot their dogs because they're out killing the, killing the predators.
Yeah.
And I don't think random people are going to pick them up over there like you would think. So, and if they had a young dog, if you, I don't know if Chris has more videos, but in the first place I went, the handlers always had a young dog with them, and they kept it on a leash the whole time until they knew that the dogs had a good race going. Then they would turn it in. And really what he was teaching it the whole time was obedience. He anytime it'd get in his way, he'd thump it and make it get back behind him, and just listening. I mean, mainly just teaching the dog respect. So
let me see what this video is. Let me play this video real quick.
But yeah,
was that it there?
Yeah, he's got a young dog right there that's with him the whole time until he decides to turn it loose.
So instead of them watching their dogs, they made it where them dogs watched them.
For the most part. Yep. And they very rarely, like that, those guys have GPSs, the handlers did, but they don't, the guy that owns them took the shock prongs out of them. So he doesn't even have the ability to shock his dogs if he wants. He can tone them, but they very rarely use it.
How did they trash break them over there?
That's, I didn't ask a ton of questions, but really they're just starting them with older dogs. And if, like, he wouldn't turn the young dogs in until the old ones have a good one going.
Well, what's the average age of like what they would call an old dog? Because if they're getting rid of them by the time they're 5, an old dog would be like, what, 3?
I mean, honestly, those dogs get hunted 5 days a week from the time they're big enough to go. So by the time it's 2, that dog has had more hours hunted on it than most hounds here when they're 5 years old.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's the same thing as, you don't get as many miles and years out of a good bear dog as you do a dog only hunt on snow lions kind of deal.
I mean, you think those dogs, I kind of calculated it up. They're getting hunted 250 days a year. Like, that's a lot.
That's incredible.
So,
they know what they're doing by a year old, I imagine.
They do. And these handlers and a lot of good houndsmen over here can tell you too, but the minute those dogs start to trail, they can tell you if it's a caracal or a jackal. They know. Or
so when do they let that young pup behind them? Like, when do they start letting them go? Do you know? Like,
when they feel it's ready. They said there's
so
not a certain
6
age.
Months,
yeah, there's not a certain age. It's just whenever they feel that it's ready. When it's been to enough trees and doesn't show interest in other things, because you could see that dog when he's leading it hit a scent and none of the other dogs had messed with it, and you'll see him jerk it back. A lot of times he'd carry a little stick and pop it in the nose. So essentially, I think that's how he's trash breaking it, is letting it smell everything while the other dogs have went past it. And if the other dogs don't make a peep, he knows it's not worth trying.
So when we see a deer cross the road and they bark and we shock them, is when they see a rabbit jump across the road and that dog gets to there and he barks and he whacks him with a stick. But those handlers, those are good handlers. Like, they're handling, those are handling a dog. That ain't cheating at all right there. That's not, we've always said that shock collars and GPS really help the handling, but do you really know your dog with the GPS or a shock collar more than those guys do with a stick?
No, especially where they're with them every day. I mean, 5 days a week they're with them. And if someone needs the weekends, they'll work the weekends. Like,
that's a 90% of the process over there, is like direct contact with your dogs right there.
Yep. And that's one thing that was very different to me, is these dogs were not used to a white person handling them. So they were not, like, some of them were a little friendly, but when we'd stop and BS, they would go stand by the handler instead of coming to see me or Scott, because we were white and they're not used to being handled by a white person. It was interesting.
It's crazy.
Like
I guess that's like if I went and picked up your dogs. Like I've hunted with Elizabeth, and I tried to walk down the canyon with her dogs, and they did not. She was telling them to go, and I was telling them to come on, and they would go a little bit, but they were not having nothing to do with that. I had a couple that would go with me because I had my dog, but I get that part. But like you said, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Like,
5 days.
Where do those dogs
same
sleep?
guy.
What do they do with those dogs at night when they get back to their quarters? Do they sleep like with them, or they got...
No? So whatever ranch they're on has to provide a kennel for them. All the dogs are kenneled together. And so the rancher that they're on for that week has to provide a kennel for them. And then when they go home on the weekends, they have 3 main kennels set up throughout the whole area. So 3 packs are at one kennel, 3 packs are at another, and 2 are at a different one. And they kind of have big separate kennels for each one's there. And that's where they stay on the weekends. But they kennel them all together, and they run, at least at the second place, they run male and female packs. They don't combine, except for the terriers can be either or. The first place, they ran mixed packs, but they weren't running 15 dogs at a time. They were running 6 dogs.
You imagine a game warden catching your dog with no numbers, no GPS on it. You know what they think you were doing out there?
Oh yeah. The second place that I went, though, they ran GPS collars on pretty well every dog. A couple might not have had them. They definitely
did. They use them though? Like, were they constantly or? Oh, okay.
No. No, they don't look at it like we do. I mean, except for like on the jackal races, like you could see them checking it because the jackal will go out, it'll circle, make it move, circle again, and when they get close enough to it, it will finally leave the country, and that's when they'll start walking and going. But the one jackal we ran was at night, like it was at 4:30 in the morning. It ran across the road in front of the truck, so we dumped on it like a hot bear.
What are those jackals killing?
They kill the same thing, goats,
just like coyotes. Then
yep, goats and sheep. Yep.
So that's their main staple over there, right? Goats and sheep. As far as the ranchers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cows. There's a lot of cattle over there, but the caracal and the jackal don't mess with them hardly at all.
Sounds really similar, the way that they handle their dogs, to somewhat of like the English fox hunter, except for more on foot instead of on horseback kind of deal. And so they keep that tight, in their hunting. And I know that they've always done that, kept really good handle on those dogs because they were hunting tighter quarters, private, things like that, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't you say, Dustin, that you went on a hunt and they kind of hunted that way? Like the fox?
No, some of the dogs were the English foxhound bred dogs.
Gotcha, yeah.
But I mean, when we free casted, these dogs would be anywhere from 50 yards to 150 yards from us, just depending on the dog. But they definitely didn't, range out 400 or 500 yards and not come back or whatever. They stayed definitely closer, but I think it's because they're listening for these handlers, knowing where they're going.
What's the furthest they're getting away from their dogs on a race, you think?
On a caracal, not very far. Like the 2 that we ran, we were never more than 400 or 500 yards from them.
Do those caracals run like a bobcat, or they kind of stay?
Yes, but not as hard. But what's different is, we're used to trailing a bobcat up for a while before the jumped race. These guys aren't doing that. They're trailing for.
They're jumping them hard.
They're jumping them, and then it's a jumped race. Most of their races over there are a jumped race.
Do they treat pretty easy, or do they run a little bit?
The caracal run a little bit. The jackal,
kind of like a lion.
Yeah, the jackal run a lot harder. But yeah, the caracal is more similar to a lion. The way I would describe the race, they don't quite pull the tricks that a bobcat will, and don't do the circles. So,
what about the fight? They mean?
Yeah, they're mean. They got some big old teeth. Yeah.
Is it pretty good population over there? Like as far as are they just kind of rotating in and out, and do they have a litter of kittens kind of deal, like 4 or 5 sort of thing, or 2 or 3?
That I don't know. I didn't get to ask that much about it, but I know there's enough of a population that they're killing a pile of them and they're still there.
They gotta know that country. They gotta know where they hang out real good too, and hunting it 5 days a week. I mean, they must know stuff like the back of their freaking hand. Yeah.
Yep. And and they have access to a lot of country, because where we were at was a lot of like undeveloped area. Like there's houses here or there, ranches here or there, but it's not, there's not a lot of people.
Missy wants to know how big them beagles are.
They were pretty small. Like I'd say probably 15-inch beagles. They were pretty small. I have a video of them in the truck. I can send it to Chris. But so yeah, definitely, like, it was interesting seeing how they handled their dogs, the way they did it differently, stuff like that.
It's a lot different when it's your job. When you're in a environment and the demographics where to get a job like that, I bet you that's just like a king's job to them.
I would kind of equate it to, on our side of getting like a study job or working for, doing something like that, where you're hired to just go chase cats, you're just getting after it,
I mean, like a state hunter?
Yeah.
State trapper.
Like, something that you can go and, you basically have free will to go and catch everything and do, do what you need to do and make the best dogs that way. And pretty much everybody that, we talk about, or anybody talks about, and especially in the dry ground world, are those guys that got to hunt 5 to 7 days a week. They worked hard, and that's who made those dogs. It just goes to show, no matter where you are, time and time on the ground is
time period.
Yep.
Essentially, that's what they are. Is generations behind us, like a government hunter. Like they're the ranchers. They don't own the land, but they're the same type of deal that all these guys are doing is killing predators off of ranches.
That's like the old cowboys that used to just go up in a canyon and kill 3 or 4 in a weekend, or whatever, because they're protecting their cattle. They're doing what they had to do.
Yep. So that's exactly what it was. So I mean, the cattle down there really don't have any predators that bother them. I think the farther north you get, you'll run into that with the leopards and the lions and stuff. But down where we were at, they just weren't there. So other than that, so the second place we hunted with, the dogs were running walkers that were imported from the Clays back east. Finney Clay. I think his boy has kind of kept the lines somewhat going, that John Clay. He runs Bobcats. So those dogs were imported, and then the Terrell Shelley and Holcomb dogs were imported, and then they also imported some dogs from Idaho, Trevor Strickland. And I don't know how many years ago, I just know that's where a lot of the lions came from that I hunted with. And the running walkers were definitely very prominent at the Mancanzana place. Like all their dogs look like running dogs. Some of them had some sight hound mixed in. You can see in some of my videos, like they have like beards and hairy faces and really hairy bodies, but they have the build of a running walker. But the terriers, they were little, like they're little dogs.
Sounds like they do real good with like some stuff of those dogs that are out in Maine that run better than Bobcat a bunch.
Yeah, so those dogs came
big tall, leggy.
Yes.
Yep.
They came from back there. I don't know where the Clay guy is exactly from, but he was a Bobcat hunter from back east somewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
how do you think those dogs would resonate coming over here if you bought a 5-year-old? Because we use them to my dirty dog's 11, and I'm hoping he makes it another year or two. So, do you think pulling a Caracal dog off and bringing him over here, you could get him like it would transfer good to dry ground, or because there's a lot of dry ground, a lot of humidity.
They don't have the nose. I don't think they have the nose.
Too hot bred.
Good for a jump race, maybe, but they're gonna pretty much just be tagging along most of the day.
And it's hard because I didn't have a dog from here that's a good cold-nosed dog to compare it to. but I did notice that the 2 dogs that were Terrell Shelley and Richard Holcomb bred were definitely a little more cold-nosed than the dogs that they had, but they still there was no cold trailing at all. Like it was mainly you were getting close to the animal before they strike, and then they'd hurry and jump it and do a jumped race. So do I think they could come over here and help on a jumped race? Yes. Do I think they could come over here and trail an 8-hour-old lion in the dirt? No. I mean, I
It's like what guys are breeding their bear dogs for up in North Idaho and the wolf country and stuff now.
I think you could drop them on some bears and probably do some damage for sure.
Seem like honorable dogs though, like they would definitely. I mean, as long as you just train them on one specific species, bringing them over, they probably do fairly well as far as trash breaking them off of other game.
Yeah. I don't know if those all came through, Chris.
Yeah, I'm uploading them. I'm trying to upload them right now, and then I'll download them.
I think Scott. Let me see right here.
The glass.
So the terriers are the Pengelly terriers. If anybody knows what that is, that's what they are. Pengelli. They have that in them. I think they have a little Jack Russell in them too, but they were mostly the Pengelly terriers, is what they said. So, and I sent Chris one video.
I'm downloading.
One videos of a terrier listening to the race, which is funny because the terriers will listen until they hear the hounds change gear, and then they'll go. they know the drill for sure. But yeah, definitely, it was an awesome. Like it felt like I was going back in time, not only being there, but going back in time and almost seeing like hound hunting in a more raw form. Where it's just a guy and his dogs hiking country, killing predators to save livestock, which is essentially what it was all started for here,
Yep.
But definitely, so one of the handlers that I got to hunt with, his name was Bongi. He hunted for one of the main, like one of the first guys to really hunt leopards with hounds over there. And I can't remember his last name. His name was Warwick. And I asked Bongi, I said, what would you rather do? Hunt leopard or hunt, they call caracal lynx. And he says leopard. He enjoyed the leopard a lot more. And I talked to Gavin quite a bit about hunting leopards, and he says he doesn't like to trail more than an 8-hour-old leopard track. And Gavin's imported a couple different hounds. He's imported some from Canada. He imported some from France called the Gascons, but he had a different name for it at all. Saint-Enois or something like that. But but he runs a little bit bigger, heavier type dog. But he's also bought a couple dogs from the Mancanzana place when they did their sale, and he said they were okay, but they just didn't hunt like he wanted, so he didn't end up keeping them. And I asked Richard kind of what the dogs, when they're doing their hound sale, go for, and it sounded around like $3,000 to $4,000 US, which is pretty expensive over there. I mean, it's the ratio from what I figured it out.
So were they just selling them in country, or?
Yeah, I don't think most people are bringing them out of country. As far as I know, they're all just online selling them in country right now.
And people are just buying them to have at their farms for predator control kind of deal. Not really.
That or most people don't hobby hunt. That's one thing I learned over there is it's either for predation or it's for money. And a lot of times it's for both.
Yeah.
So they said they sell a lot of them to leopard hunters. They just get a 5-year-old dog that, can go trail leopards. They're not running hard, but he said and Gavin was explaining to me, he said those caracal dogs and jackal dogs get a rude awakening the first leopard they catch. And you'll find out if that dog has it real quick or not.
Is that because they have to have special permits and draw special permits to get those leopard tags and things like
Yes.
that, right? It's not just like we can go just get them up the counter kind of here.
Right. Nope, they're only allowed so many in certain areas. Like Gavin gets 8 a year between 3 different areas that he hunts, and that's as many as he can get right now. Back in the day, they used to do a lot more. And I actually did get to sit down with the Warwick guy that we were talking about. So Warwick is responsible for, I think, over 300 leopards he's caught for clients and killed. And so we sat down for an hour and got to talk to him and hear some of his stories and how he brought dogs in and stuff like that. It was really, really cool.
Did you answer this one already? With
yeah,
the Jack Russell Terrier?
No, it's the Pengelly. Yeah, Pengelly Terriers, and I think they might have had a little Jack Russell in them. But other than that,
I'm downloading. I had to make those MP4s to play it.
So it was.
So what was the accommodations like then, where you stayed?
The first place was very.
I mean, it wasn't. Nice. This wasn't really a guided hunt, right? This was more over there.
This was a hound experience, not so much a hunt. It was we were there to see the hounds work and spend time with the hounds and the dog handlers, not go drive around and see animals. I mean, I still saw a lot of animals, but
but as a houndsman, this is probably one of the most knowledgeable, educational trip. Doesn't it make you want to go home and take your dogs and rip collars off and just go spend every day with them out there?
Well, I had that conversation with Benny that I will probably do a few things differently now for sure. And we'll see how it goes. But definitely,
what do you think what was the biggest thing you took from it that you'll apply to, maybe try out with your dogs a little bit?
More better handling. Like I'm not relying on the Garmin.
Right.
Which is shitty for me to say because I sell the bastards. But
but it's I think it But I think I have noticed, so I've kind of done a little experiment because I've always raised my puppies for the first probably 2 months up until the point that I just can't stand the chaos of them being in the house so much, half in the house, half outside. And I've noticed a and then I took some puppies that I bred and I just pretty much hands off, kept them out, let them do their thing. And the dogs that I've raised more inside, I notice a big difference in their handling, in their obedience, and my ability to call them off of something.
You had a better relationship.
Right. Yeah, they trust me. They listen to me more. It's more of that consistent obedience rather than having to, use the tone or use a shock or something like that. I can, hey, get off that, and come here, and I definitely do notice more of that, and I like that more. I really do. I think it's easier for, especially if you've got more than 5 or 6 dogs. I think the handling on it can make your life a lot easier, and you're not going to have as much. It's easier to call off excitement and booger barking and things like that, probably.
Yep. I think since these Garmins have came about, we've used them as a crutch, and I saw that difference, and that was probably one of the biggest things for me that I noticed was that for them that's like a last minute resort.
Tell me if I'm wrong on this though. When you have, I bet you if you took the bear, like I know when I'm bear hunting, I use my Garmin more. When I'm out on my mule line hunting, there's times where I'm like, oh, there they are. I don't know what they're doing. Oh crap, I have a Garmin.
Yep.
Well, I know
I have my Garmin.
Yeah. I have buddies that pretty much strictly bear hunt, and they don't like a heavy handle on their dogs. They kind of like them to be more crazy and freaking nutty, and they just use the handheld to control them.
Yep.
Sounds like Rick Dickerson. He said he had wily dogs.
Yeah. I did notice on the Jackal races, though, they definitely were looking at the Garmins a lot more than the cat races.
Speedier race.
It's looping. They're trying to see which way they have to go to get to it and everything like that. So
is it a cut it off kind of race there, or is it more of a bay it up?
No, it's a catch it and kill it.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it
Yeah.
goes in a hole, the
By the
terriers
time
do
you
the
get
work.
to it,
It's done.
That makes sense
Yes.
why they put some of that kind of like stag houndy stuff in there if they're
Yes.
running, for that speed and for that catch
Yep.
kill kind of deal.
Oh, and
Yeah.
they did actually have a dog, but somebody imported a dog from Chris Todd, and I hunted with a dog that was off of that, and that was a big damn dog. Yeah, I mean,
too big.
you can
Yeah.
tell looking at it in the face that it
Yeah.
was just a big old houndy dog. They said it did all right on the jackal races and on the caracals, but it was definitely a little slower. But they had bred it to a running dog.
Yeah.
So Richard Morgan's ratio is he likes to have his dogs 3/4 running dog, a quarter something else, whether it's the sight hound or the more trail type hounds. That was his sweet spot that he liked for what they were doing. The other guys, they didn't really talk much about their breeding. They just kind of had what they had, but they weren't into the breeding as much as Richard Morgan was. Like he started it, imported the dogs, and he really is trying to fine tune his operation. So,
Anyways, back to your like accommodations. How was that? Like hanging out at night? Like, well, you said you were wore out, so you were asleep by.
But most days we were back by noon. Like, we'd eat lunch while we were out there. Like the lady would pack us some sandwiches and stuff, and we'd take that with us. We'd eat lunch while we were there and come back. But the first place was really like very nice. Each room had its own bathroom, nice place, had mounts all over the walls. It was like you could say like 4 or 5 star place. Very, very nice. The second place we stayed was in an 1890s built huge farmhouse from back when the settlers came in, and his family had owned it since then. His family had lived on that place for over 100 years. And it was like they had done some additions and nice stuff to it, but it was probably the prettiest place for me because it was tucked clear back in a huge valley, mountains around it everywhere, just a big old farmhouse. And his wife took care of us there. So, but yeah, I mean, you couldn't complain about any accommodation we had.
Oh, there's it.
If you complained about it, you were looking for something to complain about.
Dustin, I never saw much outside of the big fancy hotels and stuff that didn't have a thatched roof. How much of that stuff that you stayed in or around was the thatched roof, the grass roof?
I don't think I saw one, Benny, to be honest.
Okay.
Everywhere we saw, there was a lot of government housing or little towns. And then even out on the ranches, like what they stayed in would be like a manufactured house here. Like they had just the ranchers had brought them in and put them in. So yeah, I don't think I saw.
They were white trash hillbillies in a double wide trailer. What the?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't see a thatched roof.
I think that's a better experience what you went through as far as being a houndsman. Then like it's cool to go kill a leopard. It's cool to go chase all that stuff, but to be able to get, no pun intended, tick deep.
Yeah.
I was making fun of your tick fever, but
oh yeah,
into that how they do it, and like you said, that's pretty primitive. A stick.
It is.
Their stick was their Tritronics.
Oh yeah.
And I remember not having shock collars or GPS when I got started, and then when I got shock collars, I probably shouldn't say this, but that was my locator.
Oh yeah.
They're over there. I was,
and that's the thing. We didn't have, at the first place I hunted for 5 days, we did not have one trash race. The second place, the only trash races we had were a couple foxes, and that's because the dogs pretty much ran into it and the fox ran out in front of them. And that's hard for 15 dogs not to want to eat something that runs in front of them.
But to handle the dogs like that, Brandon mentioned it, that your life just gets easier because I remember when I used to throw rocks and I used to whip my rope at them and I used to cuss and scream and carry on. And when I started spending more time with my dogs and just being part of the pack, I could just say, "Hey, get out of that. What the hell's the matter with you? What you thinking? Come on, get out."
Yep.
And and your life just gets easier. And those guys carrying a little stick and saying, "Hey, knock it off." They
Well,
weren't
they kept
having
that
any
dog
fits.
right at their feet
Yeah.
Yeah.
until they felt it was
That it's
ready to
ready.
go.
Thank you, dear.
It's like a nest,
Yep.
jump out of a nest when you're ready to fly, and I guess
Yep.
that's your decision. That's
Exactly.
cool stuff. That primitive stuff's cool stuff. And like Brandon was saying, my dogs, I let my puppies run loose. I
Yep.
throw dog food out or meat, hamburger out in the yard and whoop, and get them to come to me. And, I play with them. And even if just like I use chains, I don't like kennels much. But even when I go out and feed, I could tell the difference when my 10-year-olds feed because the
Yep.
dogs are all barking. To me, it's like them saying, "Hey, I'm here." I'll walk through the trees and those dogs will stop. Like,
Yep.
oh crap. But I also go sit down when I'm watering and I'll pet them. And just that little bit of interaction with the dog, and I think that's why I'm not saying my dogs are perfect, but they got manners. Like I
Yeah.
walk up to them, like, get on your box. If you want petted, get on your box. And they have it to where when I walk up to them, they jump on their box. I'm going to sit on their box and pet them.
Yep.
So that interaction is important.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I
And
also
that's the
think when
thing.
you're like, especially in the Southwest, if you do hunt with other guys, you want your dogs to be tolerable. You want them to be, some other guys to be able to hunt with them and not be like, gosh, I'm not going out with this jackass again,
Yep.
And I think there's a lot different. I definitely noticed because I've lived all the way from North Idaho and I've hunted every single state you can, hunt a lion in and guided in a bunch of them and stuff. And I noticed the further you come south, the better the handle is and the better the relationship is with guys with their dogs. And that's what moved me down to Arizona, is that I wanted to hunt with my dogs. I wanted to see what they were doing, not chuck them out of the box and just listen to them for, an hour or 2 hours and watch them cruise or listen to them cruise through the country rather than maybe see them cross one road or something. It's just,
Yep.
I think it makes a huge difference when you spend that time with your dogs every day, whether you're hunting or you're just out at the kennels or whatever it is, that when you're hunting off of mule or foot, whatever it may be, but you don't have the ability to see a track every, couple hundred yards or every 50 yards or even in the snow where you can see it all the time. It makes a world of difference with the way you can hunt, and it just makes your life better. Like Benny said, it's like having to scream your head off all day. That's not fun.
No.
All of us have had those days where we go out and we get a and you have to scream your head off. And
man,
at the end of the day, you go home and you're like, God, what the hell?
How many
Yep.
dogs have you wanted to just thump in the head and leave them out there? And then,
Right.
then it's just, they have those days like we do. I had a dog that I got, she wouldn't stay away from my truck. And I finally ran her over and it kind of popped her hip and I heard it and she ran out and her leg was stuck straight out. And I was so mad at her. I threw my water bottle at her. Like, you stupid dog. And it hit her right in her hip. And she yanked her leg forward and it popped it back in, I think. So I got lucky on it, but I was so mad. You just get so mad at them sometimes. But then,
it's more fear than it is anger, I think, honestly, because you're just like, you're mad at yourself for whatever happened. Truthfully, at the end of the day, whatever happens to those dogs is 90% our fault.
It is the handler. It is the handler.
Yeah.
So, and those guys in Africa, they're handling for someone else.
Oh yeah.
So that's a big stress factor. It's like taking someone's brand new truck, and then a rock coming up and hitting it off the road. It's not really your fault, but you were still driving it. So you have
I couldn't
fear.
imagine if you said, "Hey, take my dogs for a day." How the nervous wreck that I would be.
Oh yeah.
It's anybody would be that way.
Anybody's dog, even if they're crappy dogs, they're still
Yeah.
It's like babysitting a niece or nephew. When are they going to get hurt? When is your truck going to break down? When is the dog's going to fall off a cliff? When you have them.
Yeah.
And they're somebody else's.
Yep.
So.
But those dog handlers take that as they take it extremely serious. It's their responsibility. The dogs are, that's their livelihood, and without those
Yep.
dogs, they don't have an income. And the handlers, I
Exactly.
mean, you know,
Yep.
and they know the dogs more. Well, they know more about the dog. They have a closer relationship with the dog than the guy that owns them.
Oh, big
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
So they
Yeah. Yeah.
take that extremely serious.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's one thing that was very different for me. You know, the guy that owns them really doesn't hunt them. Those dog handlers know
It's a
those
business
dogs.
to him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. They know them. They hunt them. Like definitely at the first place a little more so. At the second place, Richard is really invested in the dogs, but he can't go hunt with 8 different packs every day. And I'm not sure how much he goes and hunts, but he was with us all 3 days we were there. He hiked right with us, you know, right with the dogs and everything like that. And he has a true passion for it. Like he was grilling me with questions about over here as much as I was grilling him with questions about there. Like he truly wanted, you know, wants
Has
to
he been
do
over here to
every.
hunt?
He will be over here in probably a week from now. He's hunting back east with the guy that he imported dogs from. He's going to go hunt bobcat, I think some fox, maybe some coyote, and I'm not sure what else behind some running dogs over there. So,
Right on.
but yeah, so that's his first time coming over here, and yeah, but
I'm
yeah,
kind of a control freak. I don't know if I could let someone. I don't even like buying dogs from other people that are
it's
older. Like
hard.
I just got some dogs from Brett Vaughn. He brought them over, and like they don't know me, and so I have to go
Mhm.
sit in the pen for them to come out and play with them, and be like, hey, I named the one Gringo, and so every time I walk by the pen, they're in my whelping pen right now because they're not really chain broke yet, and I don't want to put too much stress on them chain breaking them yet. But I'll walk by and Gringo, Gringo, and I'll walk over and they're still skittish, but they're starting to where when I walk by, they're like jumping up on the fence.
Yeah,
So,
starting to
but,
get used to you.
and I'm real picky. Not that I have good dogs or anything, just because when I breed them here and I raise them here, I know who they are.
Yep.
When I have a litter, I can watch that litter. I love having litters. I'm not a big puss like Jared. I love having litters. I love to watch them dogs. I let them run around the yard. I used to have the best barn cat that would just pop, 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 swat them, get them chasing them. I'd come home and they'd be treed in the backyard. I'm talking like 8, 9 weeks old. I'd hear my meh, and I go back there, and the little, the cat be up in that tree or the cat be on the ground. They'd be like barking at it, but such a great trainer, man. It was the best trainer I had. But I love raising those pups, and I love watching those dogs grow, and then you can kind of pick out which one you like the best, that you get along with the best. So
Definitely, I agree. There's good sides to all of it, and everybody wants different things out of it. I'm the same as you. I enjoy watching pups grow up, and I think being handled as pups as much as they can is a big benefit. That's why, like when we have them, my kids maul them till they're 4 or 5 months old. They're
man,
they're used to being touched. They're used to being pulled on. They're not,
what is
and
that
then
called? Becky used to talk
Yep.
about that. Becky Dwyer used to call that neurological sensitivity,
yeah,
whatever. But that's
In horses, it's called imprinting.
it's exactly
imprinting.
what it is.
Yeah.
And I had
Uh,
I had kids, so that even at
Yep.
2 years old, I opened that whelping box up, and they would jump in there. And then, of
Oh
course,
yeah.
my wife would take them out and yell at me and go tick picking off them because she would find a tick, no matter if it was a tick or not. It didn't matter. So,
No.
but just that handling at a young age.
Yep.
2,
when
3,
you buy
4
a
weeks.
dog too, for instance, this dog I bought was pretty high dollar dog. She's fantastic, in every way. Nose is amazing. It won't step over a 2-day-old track. All this, but I've learned something in owning her, because it is the first higher dollar dog that I bought. Is that when that dog may be trash broke for that handler that it was owned from before, it may not be trash broke for you, because you get that dog and you think, they tell you it's trash broke. It won't, it's not, it's only going to run this and that. And these are some pretty reliable people that I got it from, I got a good name and you all know it and kind of deal, and good dog. But I witnessed this dog trash one day.
Mm.
And, you know, it was the first time I had to really get up on her, because I thought before, you know, you figure, well, it's not, they say she's trash broke. I trust these people, you know, but she was trash broke for them. She wasn't trash broke for me. And I think depending on the company that you keep, of course, and the dogs that are around, those they might be able to be convinced, you know, as far as that dog. And so I think that makes a big difference too when you raise a dog from a puppy, from, you know, from the time it's born to the time that it's time to hunt. You already understand what type of brain that dog has, and if it's a scatterbrain or if it's got a focused mind, and you can kind of, you know, that can help you a huge bit in getting your foot forward in the right direction. But I've definitely learned that when you buy a dog that somebody says is trash broke, you got to learn that it means it's trash broke for them, and you got to better make sure you're trash broke.
Yep.
Man, that's why I never really turn down a dog from somebody, because if they're getting rid of it, they probably don't like it.
Right.
But I've also took dogs that didn't do something for that person and they did it for me, or vice versa. Where, like you said, and you can't really trash. I think people need to understand this too. When you get a dog, how old was that dog when you got it?
4, 5.
That's a long time with somebody else.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you know, that's, take your 4 or 5-year-old kid and let him go live with Auntie.
Yeah.
And the different, you know, but that's no different than me walking through the trees. Those dogs are maniacs because they know my kids aren't as mean. They'll shoot BB gun or shake it, whatever. And then when I walk through the trees, they literally all go to their box. They're like, shoot, because they know I don't put up with it. But they also know I pet them. So you can't get a dog like 4 or 5 years old. And it is, like you said. And I think that's where a lot of grievances come from, is when you get a dog, these expensive dogs, you get them over there and all of a sudden they're acting funky. Because how many times have you heard people say, why is your kid so good for you? They're heathens for me.
Yep.
The dogs are no different than humans.
I agree. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to, you know, sit there and say that something's trash broke if you haven't been around it yourself. You know, it's very tough to even to designate that. But a lot of that, I find, you know, obviously getting the right dogs is a big thing, especially in the dirt game. But training yourself is just as damn important. Just as damn important. I mean, honestly, I've even thought about days of just going riding canyons, because I've been, you know, listen and read old books and things like that about guys just going out and going for long rides, just looking for sign, and just kind of teaching yourself more about being in the country and what it's going to look like without a dog around, without something else to think about, you know, because when you're out with your dogs, you're kind of either letting them do the job, or you're thinking about, you know, what they're doing and trying to make sure they're not doing dumb stuff. You don't have quite as much attention and focus to just the terrain in the country. And that's been something, you know, I've been doing this, you know, dirt hunting deal for the last 2 years. And before
hang on, Brandon.
Yeah.
I didn't even really introduce you because you were second hour, and Dustin was supposed to only be here for a little bit, and it's been an hour. Tell us who you are first. Let's watch these videos real quick, and then he can explain it, and then we'll break into who you are. We just kind of jumped into that. I'll play they're little short clips. We can't talk during them. You can't hear us talk, or it'd be nice. But let me play this first one. You can tell. Shoot them with the camera.
Those are the beagles.
There you go, Missy. I'll play second one. It's like 9 seconds.
So that's the second place. We were just getting ready to go out. We went out for an evening hunt looking for caracal. That was just loading up in the truck. No dog boxes. They just ride in the back of the truck, and they don't get in or out until they're told.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Who was I? Oh, Chris or Isaacs, Nick Isaacs. He don't chain his dogs up on top.
Yeah, I know a few guys like that. They just ride the rack.
Yeah, and then he don't get down until he tells them to get down.
Yep.
It's pretty, you know, but that's spending time. All right, we'll go to this. We'll go. So what are those dogs, all those red and white dogs that we just seen right now?
Running walker dogs.
Those are all the running walkers. And you said some of those had the Chris Todd stuff
One
in
of
it?
them did.
Oh.
One of them did, but not in that pack.
Okay, here goes another one. All I can say is they have better clothes than I got on.
Yeah.
So
So at the very first of that video, there was like a white, like a Walker looking dog that was white with like black and a little bit of brown on his head. That's a Terrell Shelley, Richard Holcomb bred dog. The rest of those dogs, for the most part, were all running Walker mixed with some sight hound or mixed back to that. But that dog had more of this, they call it more of this, the trail hound side. So
Okay. Here goes the last video.
so that's
Whistling. Is that the whistling?
yeah, that's Bongi. And so that's just him telling the dogs we're going this way. Doesn't yell, doesn't say here, just that's his little whistle and he goes to walking. So
Kind of like,
that was
I mean, I do
yeah.
the whole whoop. Let's go.
Yep.
Let's go this way, guys. Whoop.
But they just do that the whole time they're walking. I noticed that all of them do that. They all kind of do their own little whistle for their own pack, and that's. And
I
so
kind of stole that from Jared a little bit. Jared
Yeah.
does that. He does a little high pitched whistle when he's walking.
Yeah.
He's kind of
Yeah.
deal, and whenever he's walking, because he's always on his damn feet. So
yeah. So
I don't
mean,
whistle
honestly,
good. I just whoop. That's all I do.
yeah.
Like Jared would have fit in perfect with these guys. They just go hunt and they just walk. Like that's all, you know. But like that last video, we were just hiking a big rim up above Richard's house to see if we could find a caracal that evening. So
Are they really good at tracking like everybody says that they are?
so in that country where we were hunting, it was so hard to see a track that really they were relying on the dogs.
That's kind of what I figured. Yeah, kind of like us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right. Before you get into Brandon, you got any more questions before I go to bed?
I seen you blink real slow earlier. He's either gonna pass out on us or.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Anybody? Comments? You see, you're right, Chris. Some dogs just don't handle with the person. Craig, that's twice someone said I'm right. God, let me screenshot this real quick.
Good
That don't
Lord.
happen too often. Police dogs considered dangerous, and they both turned out to be reliable. Social with me, bad marriage. I've taken 2 police dogs considered dangerous. I don't mind the dogs, like, because sometimes they just act different. They just don't get along. They just don't get along with the person they're with.
Oh,
You know, and I've had
personality.
dogs I give to somebody, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with this dog." I'm like, "Good for you.
Yep.
You can have it."
Yeah, some like I've had to get rid of dogs, but just not because they didn't hunt, didn't do what they were supposed to, because their personality and mine did not get along.
And he might just hunt something different than they're real interested in hunting. They might be more of a bear dog than a lion dog, and vice versa, or whatever it may be. So it's just yeah.
So you see what Evan has one question. It was worth it, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, where is it?
In a heartbeat again.
Even if you don't kill, because you didn't go over there to kill nothing.
No, it was that was on me if I decided to. Yep. It was what Cody had set up was the experience.
And how do you turn that down? Hey, you want to shoot this?
Yeah.
You take payments?
Obviously I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're gonna send you the hide and the skull, right?
Yep.
It's awesome.
That's cool stuff right there.
Yeah.
So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Go take care of yourself, Dustin.
yeah.
Go night.
It's
Hey.
I'm coming out of it now. But if you'd have seen me Monday night or even yesterday, I was literally laying on the couch with sweatpants and a hoodie and a blanket, shivering, and it's 75 degrees in my house.
He was saying,
My,
damn it, I shouldn't have went over there.
Even
my-
with the tick bite, it was worth it.
oh my!
Yeah.
All my kids are
Wow.
looking at me. My one little girl snuck over and asked my wife. She's like, "Can this kill him?"
His wife says, that's what you get for leaving. That is what you get for leaving.
Karma sucks.
Suffer. Like Jared says, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
So, but
Thanks
no,
for.
it
You
was.
didn't even know if he was coming on either. You're like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I told Chris when he asked me yesterday. I was like, I got to see how I'm feeling tomorrow. So,
Yeah. And then I texted him
But-
today. I said, hey, man, I got a thumbnail made. Do I use it? Do I not use it? What are you doing? So,
oh,
good deal.
okay.
Well, thanks for
Alright.
coming on.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you're
for
always on,
having
but
me.
thanks for coming on with tick fever.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or whatever you're calling it. I don't-
Yeah,
Most people take penicillin right after.
yeah.
All right, go get some rest.
Okay,
See you,
we'll talk to you
See you
later.
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 Brandon,
Yes, sir.
tell us who you are because I didn't introduce you. We jumped in. I didn't think he was going to last 30 minutes. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
For him to
Yeah.
stay on an hour 20, I was pretty amazed. I seen him blinking
It was
slow
pretty
earlier.
teeny right now still.
I seen him do the little wobble, like, you know.
Yeah.
So, and you know how you get when you got a fever. God, you just
Yeah.
don't feel it. So,
Yeah.
tell us who you are. You're not from Arizona.
Nope. I'm not from anywhere I've ever hound hunted. I'm actually originally from Canada. I
Ooh, that
left.
that cat
Yeah.
came out first. I was on the remove right now.
Yeah. I used to be former Canadian.
Yeah.
I joined the army here in the States when I was 18, and that got me my citizenship and whatnot. And then when I got out, I was kind of looking for something exciting to do still. You know, that whole adrenaline side never leaves. And eventually ran into hound hunting after kind of starting in the Western guiding stuff, moving out to Colorado and then eventually Idaho. And, moving from there, I got, of course, like most people started, doing the Western big game stuff. I'd never got a chance to elk hunt or anything like that until I was, out of the military. Well, when I was in the Army still, I went up to Colorado, but I was able to, get my way into an outfit work for a guy who had been doing it for 45 plus years and had hounds up north, and got to kind of start learning the way more so on bear dogs. At the beginning, they're real big on bear hunting there. We still, had some decent lion dogs when I first started out. Got really, really lucky in getting my foot in the door with some fairly decent dogs starting out. And, I'm kind of a impatient person. I can't really sit still very often. So when the snow would start getting, waist deep up there, and it was, late January, I'd start getting the itch to go somewhere else, and I'd start traveling out, and I'd go to, Utah or Montana or in Wyoming, and then eventually down to Arizona. And when I first started coming down to Arizona, it was a big eye opener of the different style of hunting with your dogs, like I said. And that was a massive difference. I'd never been able to actually, keep with my dogs for most of the hunts because I was hunting snow, 90% of the time, and started bringing dogs down to Arizona and catching a few lions during the winter and having a lot of fun doing that. And then I'd bring dogs up north, and they start rigging lions while we're driving down the road. While we're out bear hunting, I started rigging and catching lions, and I was like, wow, okay, that makes, that dry ground hunting really makes a big difference in a dog when you can put it in and really test its nose on a track and make it where it's gonna, hunt hard and consistently be a lion dog. And I started I've always had a big love for bear hunting. I've always been a bear hunter since my uncle owned an outfit. And when I was a kid, I get to go out bear hunting and bear baiting and stuff with him. And, so I've always had a weird, attraction to bear hunting that has always put me in the realm of big bears. And I had a lot of success bear hunting and had a lot of fun doing it. But there's something about trailing a lion in the dirt that just got me obsessed. And since I'm, I was so obsessed that I moved all the way from North Idaho. I was up in Coeur d'Alene area. I lived up the Coeur d'Alene River Road, about 30 miles up there, for quite a few years, and then started making the move down here and just really started enjoying the different style of hunting. And now I'm hooked. I'm never leaving. Now it's to the point where it starts to snow. I'm in Williams. I'm up with the high country. I'm only 30 minutes from Flagstaff, and it starts to snow here, and I'll go down the hill and try to avoid it just because, one, the competition up here when it snows gets pretty ridiculous. All those guys from Phoenix jump in their truck and load up, and you can't beat somebody onto a road unless you're up at, going and heading out at 11 o'clock at night or, whatever.
Yeah.
I just kind of got tired of that rat race and met Jared when I first moved down to Tucson. Just happened to had a dog that was had some weird infection in his ankle and was poking around looking for a vet, and somebody referred me to Jared to talk to him about vets and stuff. And then him and I started running around a bit, and then I gave him a ring, and the rest is history. Now we're it's all.
See what happens when you feed a stray dog?
That's right. He still hasn't got me a black and tan yet, so I don't know if it's that serious. But
right.
Yeah, but you want to catch game, so.
Oh, you shut up.
Jared, you do look wore out, Jared. You had to work today.
I've
been nonstop since I got up here.
I've never seen I consider myself a pretty go after type of person. I'm 6'3", I got long legs, I can hike, but I had never been so impressed with somebody who was under 6 foot, making me go, holy shit, this motherfucker can hike fast, because he just
he's being generous because he stomps me into the dirt.
Well, the first time we went out, I had to go find him with no GPS and no collars. Just had to go find his dogs because I had a dog being stupid and had to go back and get him. And I had to take a ridge and I came down on him, and he's like, holy crap. He's like, I think it might have impressed him a little bit because he's like, most guys would just come back to the truck. I was like, I'm not missing out on this. Let's go. So, yeah, but that's kind of my, what's brought me to where I am today. And I was guiding for a lot of years for other people, and started an outfit down here, and Jared and I run a lot of hunts together and have a lot of fun doing it. And it's just a, ever learning process. I think this dry ground game is something that is totally different than anything I've ever experienced, and I think that it takes a not only a special dog, but a special type of person to be a true dry ground hunter. I mean, it's the amount of dedication that it takes to really make a dog in the dirt, and
patience.
Oh my gosh, the time. That's what I tell people is that if you are interested in dry ground dirt hunting, save up your money and buy a dog that is going to help you start yourself, because you can always make money back. You can't get time back.
If you're just hobby hunting, if you want to get into it, then start a pup. But it's going to take you. You're not going to catch, if you're lucky, but you're not going to catch something in a couple of years. Most people I've talked to that's just started from scratch and went out, they're like, man, I ain't catch nothing for 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, when you do catch that first thing, and you did do it without a made dog, and but go get a made dog now. I always say I don't think you could be a true houndsman without taking a puppy and training it and catching something from scratch. I think you learn more from that than buying a dog. I know a lot of young guys who are just buying dogs. Are they catching stuff? Yeah. I don't think they'll have the knowledge of start to finish. I'm not knocking
you don't have the knowledge either yet.
No, you never have the knowledge until.
Well, just like when I took Undercover out, he's got 2 young dogs, seen 2 bears. He hunted down by my country all winter. Lord knows how many tracks he drove over, because he hadn't seen one all winter. He goes with me. I show him 5 old ones right off the road. And he's like, that's what they are. And I'm like, yeah. He's like,
they don't know what to look
tracks.
for.
He's like, I've been looking at coyote tracks for like 20 minutes trying to figure it out.
What do they say? You can make a lion track out of anything, but you can't make nothing out of a lion track.
You can make a dog track look like a lion track, but a lion track will never look like a dog track.
Yep. Oh, I've done it. I've tried my hardest. I've took elk tracks and like, that sure looks like the back pad right there, but no. And you walk and oh yeah. But that's all part of learning, and he'll learn. He'll learn. He's been with me on a couple bears. So
I ain't gonna help him much.
not on bears. He called me. That was kind of a good story. We literally just left a bear tree, and my dad had started this bear. And I'm on just coming in another side, and I hear dogs. I'm like, yeah, whose dogs are those? And here comes my dad up the road. He's like, hey, we've been on a bear. I said, you sure it's a bear? He goes, I seen it. Like, they're on it. And so his dogs were getting wore out, so I dropped my dogs. And Dirty knows how to run the circles on a bear. And I dropped him and a couple other dogs, and Dirty took it. Man, that bear just went all the way around here, there. Every time I think I catch up to him, he's already crossed the road. I check it. He's still on the bear. The other two dogs are still messing around in the stupid circles. Them bears like to do those stupid circles. Well, Dirty knows how to get out of those. And, man, I finally caught up to him, and I'm like, he's coming this way. And sure as crap, here comes that bear. So I just let dogs out ahead, and they seen that bear, what I had left, and they all got that bear treat. And Jared and everybody showed up, and I said, get your dogs out. Let's go get them on that bear. We didn't kill it. It was just a little one. Yeah. And then we literally went back to camp. I'm literally back at camp, and I get a text that says, I have a bear, and my dogs are on it. And he's like, I'm right here. I'm like, maybe. And I kind of wrestle with it, and I told my son Lyndon, let's just go see. I meet him halfway there. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I don't know. They couldn't trail it. They didn't find it, whatever. And I said, how do you know it was a bear? He goes, it was standing there. I seen it, And so we went over there, and I put my dogs down, and I walked him up the hill where he said he seen it. And man, my dogs weren't doing even Dirty. I'm like, oh man, how long ago? It's like an hour. It's an hour-old track. His dogs have been on it, and I had Yucky, and all of a sudden, Yucky kind of he was kind of my big wanderer. He'd make these big circles, and he starts trailing. I'm like, man, that's weird. And Dirty kind of pops over the hill, and he opens up and starts trailing. And then Vodka goes around the corner, and she's old. I let her out. I'm like, go, let's see what it is. And then 200 yards, 180, like over the hill. They're treed. There's no way you just seen this bear, let your dogs out, and 180 yards I have a bear tree. There's no way. And the road went right to it. It couldn't be no easier. And sure as crap, go around the road, and they have that bear treed right there. That real pretty one my son shot. But had it treed 180 yards away. It's just, and even my lead dog was kind of like, maybe he smelled Jared, or I don't know what happened. But, just happened to have a dog make a circle to kind of go out a little bit. And maybe that bear bedded up and was just chilling out, or maybe, I don't know what happened. But 180 yards away after like a good hour and 15 minutes that he had already let his dogs go. But, there's another bear, though. His dog got under that one. Now his dog got to chew on that one, too. So, and I love helping people out, even though sometimes it's a pain in the butt, and you have to deal with their dogs, and you have to deal with them. And, he's a pretty good dude. We call him Undercover because he don't look like a bear hunter. He wears the flat billed hats kind of up. My sons are always like, why did you wear his hat like this? I don't know. He's a grease monkey, works on old stuff, but
rat rods.
Yeah, rat rods. But he's trying. He had one dog when I first met him. He's camped in a little tiny tent like by me, and I'm all, you guys don't need to try to catch me this hard. I'm like, I'm camped over here if you want. So all my kids call him Undercover. I did a YouTube video, and I say, hey, me and my daughter knew where he's camped, and we were going to go move his tent like 30, 40 yards away. But he was there. So he came up the window, and I blurred him out in my video like he was undercover. But good times, man. Good times. It's fun hunting with people.
I think it's tough. And now, I don't know, I can't speak to how it was back, when you maybe 40 years ago of hound hunting, but I feel like nowadays it's tougher. It's getting tougher to get a mentor unless you are within a very good inner circle. Like you've got like Dustin, you know, how he got his mentors being in that circle. Unless you stumble upon the perfect circle, it's very tough to get a mentor that will really teach you what you're doing wrong, you know, more than anything. Like that's even I've been at this with hounds now for 9 years, and I'm obviously still learning a ton. And I think that what I would appreciate more than anything in the world right now is somebody who's been doing it 2-3 times long as me, taking me out and going, this is what you're doing wrong, or, you know, just pointing things along or talking things out with me and just helping you understand. And I think that's getting tougher and tougher, especially if you're not a vocal person, to find somebody to really get your foot in the door and help you along the way. And you know, it's become such a good old boys club kind of deal. You know, we're only so many guys. You know, if you like Derek talks about it often, how, you know, nobody will give him a dog, and not that I know if he's talked to people or the right people, but you know, that's definitely, I think, a point of contention for a lot of people when they get into hounds, especially if you're hunting them in the dirt, is to get your foot into a circle where somebody not only can point you in the right direction as far as dogs, but also help you out as a houndsman and help you learn too.
You know, I got two answers to that. So I've talked to a lot of older guys that's been in it, and they're like, these young guys don't care. They don't care. They don't want to listen to you. They know it all. So I get it too, you know, and I've even tried to help out some people. Same thing. I'm like, dude, just shut up.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to do what I say.
Yeah.
Just here's my, and I think I've said this story before. They got a loader stuck under a overpass, and they had 5 engineers there. And the guy's 10-year-old kid comes out of the truck and says, what are you trying to do? And he says, well, it's stuck under the bridge. He says, why don't you just let the air out of the tires? So sometimes you can hunt with those younger people, and they have a different idea. They have a different view. They're kind of raised, you know, and what you said, 9 years.
Yeah.
God, that's just, you know, and that's rookie stuff still.
It is. Absolutely.
You just don't. I've been doing it since 90s, and I got out of it. 2005 got another hound. So I went that little 5-year break. I've been doing it 2005, and I see people and they say something. I'm like, just like he was talking about, those guys handling those dogs. I'm like, man, sometimes you just got to quit overthinking, step back, and go back to basics. You know, quit trying to listen to what everybody on social media is doing, because those are 15, 30 a minute stuff that doesn't show the last 9 years.
Yeah,
like for you that learned something today took you 9 years to learn that, or 50 people to hunt with or talk to put together your formula. This is like a recipe, right?
Yeah.
If someone tells you, here's how I make spaghetti. Taste your spaghetti 10 years and ask you what you put in it now. It's not going to be the same recipe.
Right. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I even, you know, I think back sometimes to the first time I ever saw a kennel full of hounds. And that's what, I mean, the moment I saw it, I was like, well, I know what my new addiction is now. I didn't think there was anything cooler in the freaking world than that. And when you have something that, especially in this light of, you know, and I you know, I bring it up, and I know we talk about it all the time, but there is a difference in hunting dirt and snow. There just is. It just doesn't take as much dedication. And I know that because I've lived both lives. I've done the snow hunting and I've done the dirt hunting, and I have dogs that I can, if you put me on a lion track that, you know, it's a smellable track in the snow, they're going to go catch it. Whether, even if it takes them 2 days, they're going to go catch it. But I have those same dogs I brought down here, and the first time I put them on a line that I thought was catchable and they didn't catch it, it was a, you know, instant eye opener. And then it's like you're relearning everything. It's like
your heart drops. It's like a disappointment. Like, man, you just caught 10 lions.
You've never felt so
right there.
vulnerable. You feel vulnerable all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you're like, man, I thought I knew what I was talking about. And, you know, you think and that's what I think it really humbles you. You know, it humbled me anyways. It made me go back to the drawing board and go, wow, what am I doing here? And how do I fix this? You know, and it's not necessarily that it's a problem, because it's something that you learn through. But, you know, like I said, I would give a lot of things to just sit on a mule, keep my mouth shut, and learn from some of these guys that have been doing it for the last 30 or 40 years of their life.
Not even take your dogs. just shadow.
No,
them.
I wouldn't even take it. I wouldn't even mention that I have a dog. I just want to sit. They don't even have to know I'm there. I basically just sit back and I could be like a ghost and just listen and take it all in and just love it, because I think that's, when you have, it's like a relationship that you build with dry ground lion hunting. It's not just, a relationship of being with your dogs. It's a true relationship of being the entire aspect of it. It's a constant learning. You're learning lion hunting, you're learning the terrain, you're learning yourself, you're learning your dogs. It's this massive conglomeration of a huge relationship that is, honestly, I can't really compare it on as intimate as it is when you catch a dirt lion by yourself.
Yeah.
Especially for the first time. It's probably one of the most greatest feelings. And then Jared explains it the best way. It lasts about 2-3 days, and then you're sick again. You're dope sick for it. You're like, I need it again. I got to have it. It doesn't last.
I need to get some more. I need to get some more.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. It really is. And it
reminds me of that story with Brett when you and Brett were down there riding with John, and Brett's like, his dogs were kind of opening up or whatever, or his dog, and he said, "What's those dogs doing? They're just lollygagging. Them dogs just lollygagging."
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
When you have your own dogs, you're like, please don't be lollygagging. Come on, man. Please be something. Please be. Don't let it be that deer standing over there.
He says, yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems, especially for the younger guys, first of all, you have to prove, and that's something that's not going to be understood. You have to prove your worth before somebody else will take you under their wing. And that's a hard place to be. That's an extremely hard place to be, because in your mind, hey, nobody wants it as bad as me. Nobody's willing to listen as good as I am. Nobody's willing to follow directions as good as me. But there's so much more to it. And you touched on relationships. Relationships are key to just about anything in this life that's worth having. So I hunted lions in the dirt for 34 years. And I was real good friends with Larry Hendricks. And Larry, I don't know, he hunted full time, nothing else for a living, from 35 years old till I think he quit hunting maybe around 74 or 5. And so, that's pretty good span. I was at Larry's house one summer evening. We were sitting outside and had a fire going and cooking a steak and drinking a beer. And he says, "Hey, I got a question for you." I said, "What's up?" He said, "I had this happen. This lion did this." Told me the whole story. He said, "Have you ever heard of anything like that?" So here's a guy way into his 70s that's been hunting for 40 years almost. I mean, didn't do anything but hunt lions, period. Nothing else, period. And he was still learning. So when these young guys, I asked Larry for a deal one time, and he said, "Hey, I don't want to be anywhere near that deal." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Because you're going to have some young guys there, and they already know more than I'll ever know. I don't have anything to offer." And so that's part of the hurdle that you've got to overcome as well. I've said numerous times, I've tried to help, I don't know how many people, and only one person listened to me. That person was extremely successful. And if he called me today and said, "Hey, I've got time and I want to get dogs again," I would break my back to do whatever that young man needed. But he's already proved his worth.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot goes to also on the word of the mentor too. If you say you're going to help somebody, help them.
Oh, that's true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, put the foot forward in a way that don't make them just feel like they're a peon and somebody you just kind of call upon when maybe you need a hand. Help them. If they call and ask and they want to talk about a question, talk to them for 10 minutes. Or if whatever it may be, and that's the thing too, is like we talked about relationships. If you build a relationship with a mentor, you want to have a solid relationship with them where you can call them and say, "Hey man, I am just struggling and I can't figure it out. And you might say the dumbest thing in the world that you've never done, you know, that they've ever heard, but they're going to guide you through it, you know, and that seems like
That's
it's
exactly
getting,
right.
yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher to find that for, you know, a younger houndsman. And we talk about all the time how we need the next generation, but the next generation needs mentors too, you know, and this generation, like me and Jared, we're in the in-between right now. We're kind of in the purgatory land of guys who have been doing it long enough that nobody wants to come and hold your hand. We know enough that we don't, you know, we don't really need our hand held entirely, but gosh dang, it would be a hell of a great thing to be able to, you know, call or go for a ride or go for out on the mountain one day and just do something, you know, stuff that you can learn.
You know,
I got a phone.
to play devil's advocate, though, sometimes it's hard. I've tried to help people do it. Sometimes it's hard to deal with people. Sometimes they're just stupid.
Yeah, well, when you're the new guy, like I caught my first 2 lines on my own in the snow. No one helped me before that. And then I caught 2 and another houndsman in town. There was just me and him in town lion hunting. He invited me to his house one evening for a couple beers and we started hanging out, talking. We became best friends. But when we first met, the dogs, and you know, we don't have the best snow. We didn't have the best snow conditions, so the dogs got hung up on this lion track. And he's like, "Here's a radio. Figure it out. Go down there and help them." He's like, "You've caught 2. You can figure this out." He's like, "I'll drive around and shortcut it or what I have you, but here's a radio. Go figure it out." No, I had to bail off, go 3/4 of a mile, get to the dogs, and help them out. You have to do that.
While he was sitting in the heated truck.
Yeah, you have to do that type of stuff, though.
Yeah.
And we ended up catching it. And it was nice that he was still in the truck because he drove the truck around and made the hike out a lot easier.
What did you get out of that as a lesson?
Don't be
gotta
a candy.
Help. What's that?
Don't be a candy ass.
You got to help your dogs.
That's just how it is. You got to help your dogs. And, you know, you have to listen to the guy. 90% of it, you know. Yeah, and he knew what was going on down there. He probably knew where the line was even going. But go down, you know, it was a test. Exactly. It was just 100% a test.
Nearly the same exact thing happened to me, but I didn't have my own dogs, and I had never caught a lion. It was my very first day out actually lion hunting with the outfitter I was working for. He hands me an Astro. He has dogs. He goes, "Follow those dogs." And he goes, "You go wherever they go." And
you said, "Okay."
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Let's go. And I followed those dogs. We went into a big drifted out, you know, obviously snow hunting, big drifted out hillside. And I'm on the radio and I'm like, "Hey, Dale, there's no more track." He goes, "Well, lions don't have wings, so start walking in circles." And I just started walking in circles. And he goes, "That lion came out of there somewhere." He goes, "Keep walking till you find where it came out." And I did this, and I kept getting bigger and bigger. And I'm fine, and I'm sitting there and I'm cussing him. And I'm like, "This son of a, you know, he doesn't know there's this thing took off, it's gone somewhere, blah, blah, blah." I get about probably 2/3 of a mile away from where it was drifted out. And I can see a pothole in the snow about 200 yards from me. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "No way." And sure enough, I hollered at them dogs this way, got them going. They hit that track and they took off. And we were off the rest of the day. And we ended up catching that lion later that day. And it was just one of those deals where, you know, that was immediate humbling and going, "Shut your mouth. You don't know nothing in this game right now." And from that point on, it was probably the best first experience I could have ever have asked for, because I'm a pretty quick learner, but that quickly learned me that I know nothing. And I spent the next 5.5, 6 years just learning a lot. And, you know, and that was one of the benefits I will say is that I did have a little bit of mentorship in them. It was more so on the side of their dogs and me being a handler, because they kind of didn't really want me to get dogs, I don't think, in the long run. But I got to learn a lot from guys who had dogs that actually knew what they were doing. And so when I got to get into my first dogs, I had a little bit of an idea of what to look for, and I at least knew, who to kind of avoid and what to avoid.
If you rewind that and go back to before you get into dogs, you should know how to track.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
That's the biggest step of line.
I think a lot of
especially in the dirt,
don't know how to track an animal.
No.
And I took my 10-year-old out. We seen these two bulls go across. This was the other day, and we just tracked them out because they went to BLM land out of the houses off the golf course. Mm-hmm. And I tracked him, and he was 10. He's just like, how do you know how to do the tracks? I said, let's just watch me do it. But a lot of these new guys, they don't track. I used to teach tracking, man tracking. That's what me and my dad used to do. So these guys, I think if you just took the time and like you said, I'm just going to go out and learn stuff. Well, go out and track something, track a kayak, just track stuff and learn how to read the rocks, the branches, the grass, the certain paths something's going to go through.
And even in something I will say in mentorship, real quick, I know you want to say something, Jared, but in mentorship, you can find mentorship in your friends that are the same age as you too. Jared's taught me a shit ton about tracking. Since we're on tracking, he can pick out a track way better than I can. I've drove past shit and he's like, there's a track right there. And I'm like, son of a bitch. And I got to back up and feel like a jackass. But there's mentorship within your groups of houndsmen too. Listen to your buddies. Don't feel like you got to compete with them all the time, because I learn a lot from him, as much as I would hope he would learn some things here and there from me, and as you hunt together, you learn each other. But there's a big thing in just being humble and being able to be taught something and not think you know everything too.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. We should all be able to learn from each other.
Yeah.
You should be able to accept advice.
Absolutely.
Stupid as it might be, even stupid advice will either teach you not to do it that way. Even if you hunt with a bad hunter, sometimes you should probably hunt with somebody who's not so great and does dumb stuff, so you know what not to do even. If that makes any kind of sense.
I don't know if you notice that though until you hunt with people that are better.
That's true. And then Louisiana Hunting says let me tell you something about Jeremy and Louisiana Hunting. That guy will stop, get out to take a piss, and he'll piss on a line track because he'll walk out just to poke at a rock, and there will be a line track there. That's the luckiest guy I've ever seen that would step out of something.
Jeremy's trashy.
Jeremy is trashy too, though.
Dude, I've seen him. I remember trailing that female with Jeremy, and he saw this just 4 blades of grass laid over, probably from the wind. And he's all, "Do you think that lion stepped there?" And I'm like, "It's on 7 inches tall grass, dude. I have no clue." Or it's a hard rock, or it could be just a nasty hard rock.
But he was paying attention. He was paying attention.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was staring at the ground the whole time. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like giving Jeremy a hard time.
I think Jared's a better tracker than me because he's got 5 inches shorter than me, so he's 5 inches closer to the ground.
That's a true story. You are a freaking Sasquatch.
No, you got to be willing to listen. You absolutely got to be willing to listen to anybody, especially if they're trying to teach you, and if they take the time to teach you.
Right.
Right.
And at the time, it may not be what you want to hear. There's sometimes Jared says some shit I don't want to fucking hear at the time, but I listen to it and I take it in later, and I'm like, you're probably right. It's just a matter of you're hunting side by side with an animal. I mean, you're never gonna always be right. We're all gonna make mistakes, but I think it's in mentorship, finding a mentor that will take you into a place of a good start instead of trying to go 10 steps backwards before you even take a step forward.
Trying to make you look stupid.
Yeah.
Well, and being a mentor, or not being a mentor, being the student.
Mentoree, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not good with words, but I'm learning. But, you listen to that. He lives in Idaho now, but he used to hunt with Dale Lee. And it was him and this Mexican, this lion was on a tree branch hanging over a bluff. And the bluff was like 70, 80 feet down. They would have taken an hour and a half ride to get down to get to the lion after they shot it. So the Mexican knew Dale Lee and all this stuff. And he looked at the young kid and he's like, hey, get down close to that lion and I'm going to shoot it. And when I shoot it, you just grab onto it and hold it. You know?
That was Benny.
And
he was talking about Benny.
and so they do it. And the lion falls off the tree, starts climbing down or falling off the tree. He grabs it by the tail. It swings down to the ledge, and he sits there and leans back, and he holds it, waiting for the Mexican to pull him and the lion up. And they go to the bar in Patagonia after that and start talking to all these cowboys. And the Mexican goes, "You wouldn't believe what this retard just did." You know, but because he did that, now they're going to call him back and be like, "Hey, dude, you need to come hunting with me again."
Mm-hmm.
It was a test. That's all it was.
Hey, he
took
instruction.
Yeah, just like what happened to me and Brandon. Hey, go figure it out. Are you going to go 300 yards away from the truck and get scared and quit because you can't see the road anymore? Or are you going to muscle up and go do it?
There's nothing that'll make you tougher in this world than being a freaking hound hunter, I think. And just in the respects of the places that you got to go by your damn self. You know, there's places in this world where a lot of people, they don't want to go. And some people, you know, once the light leaves the earth, they get pretty terrified. And there's times where you're going to be hiking through at night in places where you don't want to be. But, I mean, I don't see how you could be afraid of when you got a pack of great dogs around you. But even if you're just trying to get to those dogs, you know, it's like there's nothing that will make you tougher in this world than being a houndsman, I think, a true houndsman, because in my opinion, you know, obviously there's circumstances that happen, but we do our best to get to our dogs every time we possibly can. You know,
but you know, like I told Brandon this year, me and Brandon had a lion jumped on the Mexican border, and I messed up. It was like an hour and a half till dark. We're 2.5 miles from the truck, and we're a mile out of Mexico, and we're in a nasty shithole where if we shoot the lion at dark, we're sleeping out there. Like, you're not coming out trying to figure out how to get through the boulder piles at night. Yeah. And I pulled the dogs off. I was like, dude, it ain't worth it. We'll come back. We'll get on them. Sure, shoot. We find a different lion the next day, night old track. We never caught a lion for that hunter.
Yeah. It's different when you have a hunter though too. You gotta, you know, be a lot.
It is. But, you know, that was just one of them deals. It's like the wind was blowing 30 miles an hour. We're 2.5 miles from the truck. We're next to Mexico. And this line's not participating like it should. And it was just like, what, you know, and I told him, the hunter went home without a lion. And I was like, dude, I messed up that day. Like, I totally bitched out.
But it was in good respects to the hunter and everything like that. So it's if it was just you and I, it would have been a different story. It would have been just going after it. But when you have a hunter, it definitely takes different rules nowadays. You know, unfortunately, back in the day when you could just chuck a bedroll out anywhere for a guy and they wouldn't complain because they were there to, you know, to actually kill something. Now
they were there to have an adventure, not just to go whack an animal.
Right. Yeah. You know, and even like they, you know, you heard in the Slash Ranch Hounds book, you know, and they talk about taking these guys from New York that it was just their dream to get out of the city and go and be with the hounds in the mountains for days on end and catch as much game as they could. You know, and that's just, it's a different type of client you're dealing with nowadays, unfortunately. Yep. But that, you know, I have a question.
And the Mexican border does still scare me just a little.
Yeah. It's like reservation, man. I'd rather go to Mexico and hunt like across that than the reservation, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not worried about getting my dogs back. I'm worried about waking up to a barrel in my forehead.
So I have a question.
The chances are slim, but
I've been thinking about this all for the last week because I heard it in a podcast with an old hound hunter that I was listening to. And do you guys think that once you breed most dogs, especially like these Southwest dogs, that you're breeding them for having good nose and all this stuff. Do you think that ability comes more in the nose or in the brain?
Go,
Does it
Benny.
come down more to nose? Does it come down to more? Do you think more dogs have an equal nose? Like, this is where I've been trying to figure out is on like their scenting ability. Like, yes, some dogs can smell tracks older, but their ability to push that track and actually do something with it. Do you think it comes into the nose or do you think it comes into the brain? Because there's some dogs that I have that they'll smell this. Both dogs will smell a 2-day old track, but one dog will stick on it and get stuck and stick and not stay on that track, where that other dog will push it further and want to catch it more. What do you think that comes down to? You think that comes down to more in the nose or in the brain?
What do you think, Benny?
First of
Since
all,
you're
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any idea how people think they can measure the scent ability variance in hounds.
Mhm.
I know that there's cold nosed dogs and I know that there's hot nosed dogs, but I believe, and this is just my belief, that what it comes down to is the brain in that dog. What drives that dog? Because, like you said, some dogs, well, okay, for one instance, I got a dog, a pup from Roland Rice. He was Terrell Shelley's neighbor. His dad was Blue Rice, and I wanted some of that Rice blood, so I got a pup from Roland. That pup never would screw down on a on a cold lion trap. Just had no desire. It was mentally, this dog was more scattered, just gonna do this, gonna do that, gonna be here, gonna be there. And I had to beg a guy in Eager to take that dog. First of all, like Chris said, if somebody's getting rid of a dog, they don't like it, something's wrong with it, and nobody gives away a good dog for free, right? Well, that's not necessarily so. That's just the status quo. So I finally just kind of bullied this guy into take this dog. I said, it's going to make a bear dog and make a hell of a bear dog. I can see it in the makeup. He says, well, then why don't you want it? I said, I don't hunt bear and it's not going to screw down on a lion track. And I need something that screws down on a lion track day in and day out. So he was going bear hunting with his buddies at Snow Lake that very day, leaving. And so he took that dog and he said, I've never, first of all, when I opened the dog box up, the dog didn't get out until I said, hey, come here. Rose, come here. And I said, Rose, unload. And she jumped down and I petted her and I said, Rose, load up. And she jumped back in. I said, get in the box. She gets in the box. He said, first of all, you got a handle on that dog. Second of all, that dog's in shape and you're not hunting her. So what's wrong with the dog? I said, I told you. She won't screw down on a lion track. And they took that dog bear hunting and they only hunted that dog that week they were gone, to my knowledge. They kept that dog bred with pups every 6 months after that because they wanted that line. And so to me, that's just that came out of all of that same line of dogs with all those noses. That dog didn't have the brain to stay with that cold track.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I
Wow.
think that that's definitely what my correlation on it is the brain is what pushes the ability, what gives them the drive to really get after it on that on a dirt line versus something like a bear. Like I sold 5 dogs to guys that I think are going to make absolutely great snow lion and bear dogs. I think they're going to make phenomenal, but they're just the same way. They wouldn't screw down on a dirt lion track.
No.
So, but everything, we also, something that people don't talk about, and I say it a lot, is luck is a big part of this deal too.
Mm.
We can think we have all the information. We can think we're surrounded by people with all the information, but nothing overrides good luck or bad luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you with good nose or brain or anything, if you don't find a track, you ain't gonna find a lion, right?
Well, and
Well,
it's not just the track. You can have a track, but that
yeah.
doesn't mean that everything's going to go just like it should. You can be on a fresh kill and the lion's right there. That doesn't mean anything. That just means that you have a better chance.
No, you're wrong, Benny. I've seen it on social media. It's really easy.
That's why people
They
don't want
catch
to
them
mentor.
within minutes, 30 minutes
That,
usually.
that's why people don't want to mentor.
That's
because
exactly what it is. The young
Yeah.
kids watch how easy it is to do it. That's why everybody thinks it's cheating. That's why everybody thinks that, oh, you guys, you're not real hunters. You guys are petty. But come along on a dry ground line hunt with Jared or Brandon or these guys who walk like maniacs.
My best.
I was going to say a couple months ago, I got a phone call. Somebody that watches this and Monday nights wanted to talk to me. So Brett gave him my phone number and he calls me, and we know a lot of the same people. In fact, he works for a guy that's a good friend of mine's cousin. We know the same country. We know a lot of different stuff, but he hunts lions and his wife hunts bears. And he says, we got this lion that we can't catch, and it's a tom. And I said, really? I said, well, okay. He said, so I want to know what's it going to take to catch that lion. And I said, well, that's kind of crazy. I don't, you're going to have to stay after it, and the lion's going to have to mess up. If the lion's learned how to get away, the lion just stay with it, and someday will be a bad day for that lion. I said, or if you can catch that lion off of a kill, you'll increase your chances. And so a few days later, he called me and he said, hey, my wife found where that tom had made a kill, and she couldn't do anything with it. The next day she went, or maybe she ran it that day, didn't catch it. The next day she ran it again, and it had not come back to that kill. She picked it up somewhere else and she caught the lion that day. And it made me look brilliant. But how much of my brilliance was just pure luck?
Yeah. Casey Fair texted me and said it's brains.
See,
But it takes brains on two things, your dogs and the handler. Because them dogs, how many times have you heard someone say, trust your dogs? I'm real bad about that. Especially when they're getting out there a little ways and you don't know, you don't have a track. They're going in a way that don't seem right, and then you end up circling around and catching that track. And like, I shouldn't have pulled him off, or, I should have let him run a little further. So brains on both parts, right?
I'm real bad at it after the dogs keep bumping monkeys.
Oh.
And going, and there's, you're so you hike out of that canyon and you go into another canyon, and right when you hit the bottom, they start going again, and it's all, you trashy buggers. After you just heard 30 different barks in an hour and a half, you start getting mad thinking whatever they walk across they're opening on.
It's probably made you better at looking for tracks, though, because you're always worried about monkeys. So your eyes are glued to the floor. I mean, in a way that is, and now you've been hunting that country for so long, you find the track so good. But yeah, you definitely do have more hesitation. I can feel it when we're around in that Cotamundi country than when we're not.
I've just heard so many. I've had one dog almost get an eye ripped out by a monkey.
Yeah.
But I've had there's a lion hunter down by us, and his best dog went off the ledge over a monkey. I'd be so mad.
But that's the consequences. That's something. It may not happen to you. I always tell people it happens on TV. It don't always just happen on TV. People dying, car crashes, dogs going over ledges. It don't just happen on TV or social media. That could happen to you, because those people are people who seen it on TV and now they're putting it on TV.
But back to the brain thing, my best dry ground dog came out of Battleground, Washington as a bobcat dog. I mean, it caught 2 dirt lions that weren't hard. I mean, one we cold trailed for 20 minutes, jumped it, caught it. Second one, we trailed it for about an hour, jumped it, caught it. And then after that, he would hammer a track like you wouldn't believe. And he straight up, his first 5 years of life, the only lion he ever saw was in the snow. And then He just died a year ago at 11 years old in Arizona. And shoot, he went from being a snow lion dog, bear dog, to grubbing his nose red and catching lions in southern Arizona. So
I
it's
get, let me tell
brain.
you about, more brain stuff. I asked Cody King. Cody catches 120 bobcats a year and 20 lions.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so Cody, do your dogs slow down? Have they learned to slow down and work a lion track? And he said, no. They're focused on a bobcat race. He says, we catch more bobcats than anything else. He said, but I know a guy over here that by him that has the exact same dogs that Cody's got. And he has switched the deal up and he catches more lions, focused on lions and not pursuing the bobcat. So he catches 40 or 50 bobcats and 30 or 40 lions. And so those dogs have slowed down. That's why they're not catching the bobcats, because they're not pushing as hard. And if that's not just pure brains, the different thought pattern with the exact same dogs, the same litters of pups, if it's all the brain. They all have the same nose capability, but it's a different thought process.
I would agree with that too, because like I have my buddy dog is a Smoky River Blue Diamond Gym dog. I got him when I think he was, I don't know, 4, and he had been primarily hunted on bobcat out there in Oregon and Washington area there. And I thought that he was a heck of a lot more, hot nosed. And my first time bringing him down here, he kind of was confused. He didn't really know exactly what he wasn't acting like he normally would, and he knew what he was. He's the most honorable dog I've ever had, and he runs a lion way better than he'll ever run a bear or a bobcat or anything like that. And had him down here first year, kind of just not really performing. Second year, I brought him down, and he started figuring out a little bit more. Now that he's living down in this country and he's had time to hunt it and all these things, he does just as good as he did in the snow. And I think it's just the time he took the time, or
repetition.
Repetition in the
experience.
Dirt. Yep, 100%. Yep, and that is something that is, like we said, it's just time. It's irreplaceable in this game. If you have the time you have to have the time to do it in order to make a good dirt dog.
Well, here's another thing
for a
too.
lot of money.
What makes the younger dog smarter, and it's kind of sad to say, is when that older dog goes or dies or gets pulled, because they're copycatters, and I think they rely, this is my opinion, they rely on that. They rely on Dirty, my dog, to take that track, and they follow and take that track. They're learning, but until you pull that dog off, everybody worries about their dog dying, right? I'm like, oh, Dirty dies, and I just lost Yucky. He was kind of my second in command. Now I'm stuck with Halado. He's a year and a half. Like, he's not very old, and all my other dogs are pup. But once them older dogs get pulled, died, go away, those younger dogs will step up. They usually got a dog that will step up.
Yeah.
And that's scary when you lose that older dog, because you're like, what am I going to do? And I think when that dog's gone, they have to pull their weight a little more, and they will pull their weight a little more if you got a good dog. I mean, I've seen that. I lost Luke on a line hunt down in Tunnel Basin. Javelina hunter ran him over, and that was my lead dog too. And I hunted with Elizabeth. Her dogs would rig, and I had Dirty. He was younger. He was 5'6", and then he just started rigging, and then we started letting dogs go on his rig. He would rig, let her dogs go, to the point where she says, well, let him go. To the point where I was just me and him, and a couple of dogs. He rigged. I let him go. We caught a bear. And that's all about, he just got to do it on his own. You let him step up. You let him be that supervisor, and they start working a little harder.
It's really cool when you notice a young dog that you have start gluing to an older dog that knows what it's doing. That's
on his butt.
The coolest things. Yep. That is one of the coolest things. I got this female that I was born here on my place, and she is like freaking glue on my other best female I got, my lead dog. And everywhere that dog goes, she's right behind her. She's nose to the ground. And when I started seeing that, and I was like, okay, this is one that's gonna really, do it. And I think that makes a big difference. Is like we were just talking about with brains. When the dog with the brain starts realizing another dog that's doing a thing that's making you happy, it sees that, it picks up onto that, and it glues to that dog, and it starts learning from that dog. And like even Jules and I were talking about last week, about when you have a litter of puppies, is there a way to start, possibly trash breaking them or teaching them the proper scent to follow, before they can actually get out and go run in the field. And, we went over just a bunch of ideas, just throwing things out there, just talking, and as far as like scent boards or, different drags and things like that. And what what we keep coming back to is just that it's impossible to simulate a dry ground lion hunt with anything other than time in the field, because there is so many factors that come into play when guys, start your dogs on a cage coon, this and that, yada yada. Yeah, you're gonna see if the dog's got some bark in it or if it wants to go or whatever. But when you're hunting lions in the dirt, there's absolutely no way to simulate it in a controlled setting other than having a good older dog that knows what it's doing and is honorable and is going to make sure. You pretty much have to have a tattletale, and when you're learning this game in order to teach yourself too. I've learned more from my buddy dog. Like when he dies, it's going to be a tough day, and like I try not to get emotional about dogs, because we have so many of them and we do such a tough thing. But when he goes, it's going to be a tough day because he's taught me more about lion hunting than any human ever has, and just about hunting and just having hounds in general and everything like that, and like I appreciate everything he's done for me. So it'll be a tough day when that day comes.
Yep. I tell you what, when you have an older dog to train your dogs, I've got out of all the scent training and drags. I used to do drags religiously. I still have little stuffed animal. I let my kids drag around where they have that competition, and a guy that I got my dogs from back in 2005, he said, just let them run, let them chase those rabbits, let them do all this stuff in the yard. That's why I kind of let them loose in the yard, and they'll chase rabbits and they'll chase whatever. But then you start dropping them with some old dogs, and those dogs, like you said, when that dog's trailing a bear, lion, and you're like, good boy, them dogs, they're smelling the same thing and associating with, oh, hey, it's just like a kid, kid does the dishes and you're like, you're stupid. You do them wrong. He's gonna be like, not want to do it. You tell him, good job. But hey, make sure you get all the little spots off it.
Yeah.
I think the praise is important.
Absolutely.
I think praise is really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even I got this dog they were talking about, you said something about not turning down a dog sometimes. There was a cowboy buddy of mine gave me a call a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I got a buddy. He's a cowboy himself. He's got a pack of dogs for catching wild cattle. And he goes, this dog, he'll have it out on wild cows, and all it wants to do is stick its nose to the ground. It wants to keep its nose to the ground. And then I started trailing, and he said, it just ran off one day and caught a lion. He goes, do you want it? So it's a 14, 15-month-old dog, and it's who knows what's bred into it. I had it out that day I texted you about that kill. The next day when I went back there, that dog's never had a collar on it before, nothing like that. And it was right in there trailing with my lead dogs on that track. And it was 95 degrees at 1:00 in the afternoon, and it's hitting that track and it's just doing the dang thing. And it's just like, and that guy, good on that guy for not, just getting rid of that dog to, sending it to go hunt with Jesus somewhere and sending it to somewhere where it go have some worth. And now it's like, it's cool. It's just like,
it's like buying a storage unit with a pound of gold in it.
Yeah.
You're like, dang.
Yeah.
I had a rancher.
Best dogs are free dogs sometimes.
The same thing. I had a rancher say, hey, you want this dog? I said, what's the matter with it? He says, it's trashy. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it just keeps chasing bobcats. I said, well, I guess I'll take that trashy dog off your hand. I'll see if I can make something out of him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah. No, it's just, I think it's a tough racket to get into, getting into hounds. You know, it's a tough game to get your foot into. It's a tough game to, I don't think it's ever masterable, and I think that's what keeps people so intrigued with it. The guys who stay with it as long as they can, as long as they do, you know, doing it for 34 to 40 years, that consistently stick with it. It takes this special type of individual to always want that chase in your life. You know, it's just different.
You know what they should do, and I'm kind of believing this more and more, is just like the falconry. We should really have kind of an internship for hounds, and you have to run with somebody for 6 months, whatever. Somebody, not just somebody who drives around in truck. I'm talking, and you should have to be an intern on a hound, and learn about all that crap, all the hard stuff before you go buy a whole pack. And what happens, everybody's seen this. I want to get in the hounds. Well, I got a puppy for you. I got a dog for you. The guy ends up with 5 or 6 dogs that either don't know what they're doing. The guy didn't like his color. He didn't run them enough. He just don't want them, and you don't want to call them out. So these guys end up with this, and they have a tough time doing it, and they don't take the time to do it. And it takes a lot of time in the beginning. You can't go out on the weekends. You can't go out once a month or just when it snows. You have to constantly be playing, even if it's at home, or even if you take it down to the canal, run it with you, even if you just take it to the lake, letting it smell stuff. Because how many times you took a puppy out, you've had it in the yard for 5 months, 3 months, 4 months. I'm usually having my pups out early, and then you take it out and they're like, what is this? You can't just keep them for a year and then throw them with an old dog, unless you're lucky. And he's like, oh, he goes out. But most time they're so infatuated with, like, oh my God, these new smells. He already knows what your yard smells like. It's full of dog crap and people and whatever. But you get out there in the woods, there's a whole mess of new smells, and you have to acclimate them to it.
Yep. But yeah, I wish it was, I hear the guys talk about how they used to just keep their dogs out, as puppies, and they'd let them stay out until they'd not come back for a day or two. And then once they started doing that, that's when they'd start kennel them up or chain them up or whatever it may be. And they always felt like they had better dogs that way. And man, I wish we could do that nowadays.
That's how I do. When my neighbors call and say, hey, Chris, do you have hound puppies? Then they go on a chain. And it's chain break time. So.
Yeah, but it'd be nice, most of the people, unfortunately, a lot of guys don't live in an area where they can just let dogs kind of run loose without somebody trying to take them back to California or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of good info tonight, guys. So.
Yeah, it's, I think it's, one of the things that's nice to talk about is how to get into this stuff for guys that are interested, because if we don't,
I'll tell you how. You don't. You find somebody with dogs. You go out with them every other weekend. You help them rake crap. You buy a couple bags of dog food, and you intern for them and know how it is. Know how it is to lose the dog. Know how it is when a dog trashes, or you're out, or you're leaving your sweater and dog food out, or you don't see them for 3 or 4 days. You get all these social medias like, oh, we found these dogs, they're starving. And you think we're sitting at home? Like, I've put on, man, I tell you what, them GPS have made my gas bill and tires and go down. I remember driving around till 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Now it's nice. Now it's nice to know at least where they were, and you can get up on a hill somewhere. And if you don't pick them up, you're going to go another mile or 2 and get on another hill until it pops up. And as long as it pops up and I know where he was, you're going, trying to get close.
I have a kid that is just down the road from me that his dad has hounds, and he's pretty busy, so they don't get to hunt as much right now. But I took him out, a couple of weeks ago, and took him out on the mules, and we went and did a couple circles around, and you know, it's kind of nice because he's only, I think he's 12 or 13 right now. And, you know, we got to talk because he's got some young buddies that, you know, either their dads have hounds and this and that. And I said, you know, I know you guys are going to go, you know, do things in life, especially when you're 18 to 24 or 25. But I said, you know, we need you guys. We need the next generation. We need the young kids who have grown up with hounds in their life, who have been around it and understand it, to be the next voice, you know, because I told him, I said, if we don't have the next generation, I said, you might not have this by the time, you know, you're going to have kids and things like that. So it's super important that, you know, you always try to keep that vision in your head of, if you want dogs, you know, do your best to stay in the game a little bit, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a fact. Pay attention to what's around you. That's for sure.
And find a good mentor. And if
Find a
anybody
good
wants to
mentor.
mentor me, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, my phone number.
We're gonna pimp Benny out. We're gonna have raffles for mentoring Benny.
Benny, we got a nice apartment over here. You're welcome anytime. Come and hang out, meals around. Yeah.
Yep, free meals. So all you got to do is talk.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
deal,
there's just
guys.
nothing beats time out in the woods. That's all. Or the desert,
It
or
is.
wherever it is. There's nothing nothing
Time.
beats that time. And sometimes when I was out there all the time, I just enjoyed sitting there watching the dogs and learning myself. Because if
all
you
about
don't know
time.
your own dogs, you don't know enough to go out the next day.
We're gonna auction off a night with Benny.
A
Like they
night.
used to do with
A night.
professional.
Yeah, night.
Yeah, a professional sports player. They used to auction them off for a date. We're gonna do that with Benny.
A houndsman.
Yep.
A houndsman night of unlimited questions.
I was talking to Steve Smith the other day, and I pointed out, I said, Steve, you got a few years on me. I said, but you realize we're next in line to kick off. He says, yeah, I hate thinking about that, Griffin.
Yep.
Well, hey, I talked to John Clump for a while on the phone too, and you know, I know Jared, you know, Richard was interested in coming out to hunt with him, and it'd be real cool if we could organize something down there in that country and all get together and maybe you know, do a Wednesday night live or whatever, something like that. It'd be pretty cool.
Well, it depends on where. If you go down to Clumps, there's no cell service.
I got the Starlink. We can bring.
So do I.
Good to go. Yeah, there we go.
This is all we need. A little power.
Yeah, I got.
It would take a lot. Dickerson and Clump haven't seen each other for decades, and just to sit back and listen to those two and watch those two interact would be fun.
You wouldn't have you wouldn't have to say nothing. You would just point the camera at him.
Yeah, I just sit there with duct tape around my mouth and just listen like a giddy little kid. You know, it's all the stuff that you hear about that guys used to do. That, you know, unfortunately, the world's so big these days. It seems that guys don't take the time to get together as much and just do that kind of stuff. You know, when Dustin and Jared and I were out there and we got to go poke around and you know, just south of Camp Verde there, it was a damn good time. You know, just no stress, just out there learning a new country, riding around with some good mules, good dogs, and good buddies, and just having a good time.
Where'd you go?
Just in Unit 21 there, off of just south of Camp Verde, over by Cedar Bench Wilderness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went down the river a ways.
Yes. Yep.
Nailed it.
Go east there on the river a little ways. Yep.
Should have. Well, never mind.
We'll have to talk some more.
Yeah, that's off the air stuff.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's been time.
It's way past, but I have I've hunted and worked cows literally from Childs to New River.
Oh man.
On that Verde River.
And
just short of the skyline to the east, all the way to I-17. I've been in almost every bit of that country.
That's some good tough country in there, but good hunting too.
Yeah, it's And
Jared looks like
Yeah,
a
it's
beat up
something
Raggedy
else.
Andy dog.
My day's
Jared
not
does.
even. My day's not even over yet. I just took an energy drink, so.
Oh, goodness.
Well, you got to quit. You got to quit working that hot asphalt in the summertime.
Well, I'm back up in Nevada right now, and I've been on the chute. We've been having to use a conveyor belt for 12, 13 hours a day and conveyor and base into a building, and I've been running the chute all day. And then I still got to go. I got to go out to a buddy's house. I got a welding job to go do continuous for him, so I got to go look at that out tonight. But
You should have
Oh,
imported bone pile to get that done.
right,
Mm-hmm.
I should have. He would have had it done in half a day.
Yes, he would have. I hadn't even heard from him. Where did he must have passed out or whatnot. So,
Yeah,
He went on to the harder stuff and went to sleep early.
yep. Well, good
Brown
deal,
water
guys.
guys.
Well, there's some this weekend. Got some hound trials going on if anybody wants to go.
Yeah, my neighbor's boy there, he's going to go do that, I think. So that'll be good.
What's his name?
His name's Jackson Johnson.
Yeah.
Ethan Johnson's his dad there, but yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff. It's
Yeah,
good for the kids. I really like the kids. We got a new area we're working, so it's going to be a cluster. But,
yeah,
the old area they used for 20, 25 years, some of them dogs know you don't even have to make a drag. They probably just let them go and they run the trail to the tree. It's going to be a little tougher this time. We had to go out a couple weeks ago and mark all the trails. So it's going to be new for everybody, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun. So anybody wants to go, and it's in a new area. It's not by Jones Crossing no more. Literally, you take old bike past Clint's Wells, like you're headed to Winslow, go to 95 Road, go to the 513 Road, and you'll find us. But anybody can message me on Facebook or ask azwda@outlook.com. Email me and I'll send you coordinates. So
Brandon, where do you live right now? I'm sorry, Chris. Finish.
No, that's all right. Well, we're going to do a raffle. We're going to raffle this bad boy off. So if you want to go to azwda.com, it's a 1949. It has Marvin Glenn, article about Marvin Glenn in it. So that's a cool magazine. It's in a little paper thing. It does have a little writing. You can't, if you look at it, it has a little bit of writing on it. Someone tried to remove, but that thing it's really clean. Really clean.
Yeah. That was cool.
35 cents. You see that? So I did kind of throw it up on the raffle page on azwda.com. And we will be probably raffling another Garmin away here pretty soon after this raffle. And we'll be raffling Benny for a night. Brandon got his money in on that.
I heard you ask where I live. I'm up in Williams, Benny.
You need to be hunting over there. You need to get in with the people on the Wallapai.
Yeah, I know. That's a
hard deal.
Yeah.
But nobody's been killing any lions over there since Hendricks left, and he killed plenty. He killed enough that there weren't any lions leaving tracks to mount to anything anymore.
Yeah, I need to go talk to them.
Yep. Well, good show, guys. Brandon, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Jared, go brush your hair.
If you guys,
Put a hat back on.
I'm getting
if you guys are gonna hunt, you guys are gonna hunt down there in 21 again. Look up Richard Fight.
Okay.
I know.
I got his number.
Yep.
There you go,
I got
Richard. I
his
just
number.
threw you under the bus.
I don't answer on Facebook. Maybe not. I'm not real good at social media. I'm gonna tell you, Alec. So
Chris doesn't even answer my phone calls half the time. So
I'm always on the phone, and people call me when I'm on the phone. My phone cannot ring for 3 days. I get one phone call, and then 10 people call me at the exact same time.
you called me yesterday. You called me yesterday and then said, "Hey, I got to take this. I'll call you back." Well, that was 24 hours ago.
I called you back and it went straight to voicemail. I probably forgot, man. It's crazy. And then this week I had to tear my trailer all apart, get it ready to go to Catha, and dealt with all that. I will look for you. If you send me a message, Alec, I'll look for it.
Later,
Thanks, Benny. So I'll go on and look. Message me, put it on my post, put it on my page. I don't know. Email me, azwda@outlook.com.
Just put the coordinates on the AZWDA page.
That's what I'm going to do. I'll build a page
There you go.
and put it on there. It's pretty easy.
There you go. Bingo.
So, I did build a page 5 minutes before we got on here for the raffle. So a lot of things to do. Plus, I've been busy on PI stuff, man. They've been killing me on it, but can't turn down money. That's what pays my bills. That's what pays the Starlink.
Told you, just indentured servant one of them 9 kids every year, and you'll be just fine.
I've been trying to sell them, and they keep bringing them back. I need to do no refund. So, all right, guys, thanks for coming on. Brandon, you're welcome on anytime you want.
Okay.
You kind of ask questions that we forget to ask. So
yeah, I got a lot of them.
Yep. I got a lot of answers, but they're probably not right.
Right.
All right, guys. Thanks.
See you guys maybe next week or sometime.
Sounds good. If you get bored, come up this weekend.
Okay, sounds good.
All righty. Jared, go to work.
Yeah. See you guys.
See you later.
Well,